Blood pooled across designer Italian leather as the billion-dollar empire began to crumble on wet asphalt outside a garage that couldn't afford next month's rent. That morning changed everything. A mechanic drowning in debt, a billionaire bleeding out in the rain. One impossible choice that would expose corruption, shatter corporate lies, and prove that sometimes the greasiest hands hold more integrity than $1,000 manicure ever could. This is their story. Before we dive in, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The fluorescent lights in Ryan Cole's garage had been flickering for 3 weeks. He kept meaning to replace them, kept adding it to the mental list of repairs he couldn't afford. Right below, fix the heating system before winter actually hits. And above, figure out how to pay Mia's school fees without selling his truck. The list never got shorter. It was 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday that felt like every other Thursday, gray, cold, and vaguely hostile. Ryan stood in the cramped office of Cole & Sons Auto Repair, staring at a stack of red-stamped envelopes he didn't want to open. Past due. Final notice. Last warning. The language of failure, printed in cheerful fonts by people who'd never missed a meal. "Daddy, you forgot to sign my permission slip." Ryan turned to find his 7-year-old daughter standing in the doorway, backpack hanging off one shoulder, her hair in 2 uneven pigtails he'd attempted that morning. Mia had her mother's eyes, bright, observant, completely incapable of lying. Those eyes were currently fixed on the bills spread across his desk. "Homework?" he asked, sidestepping. "Did it last night. The permission slip's for the museum trip next Friday. Miss Rodriguez needs it by tomorrow, or I can't go." Mia walked over and carefully placed a wrinkled form on top of the nearest past due notice. "You okay?" 7 years old, and already she was taking care of him. "I'm good, sweetheart." Ryan grabbed a pen, scrawled his signature. "You're gonna love the museum. They've got the whole dinosaur exhibit, right? And the planetarium." Mia's face lit up the way it always did when she talked about space. "Jenny says her dad's gonna chaperone, but I told her that's okay because you have to work." The guilt arrived right on schedule, familiar as morning coffee. "Next time," Ryan promised, knowing he'd probably said the same thing last time. "Go grab your lunch from the fridge. Bus comes in 10 minutes. Mia hesitated, then stood on her toes and kissed his cheek. "Love you, Daddy. Love you more, kiddo." He watched her disappear into the small apartment attached to the garage, the space that had somehow become their entire world after Sarah died. 3 rooms that smelled like motor oil and old coffee. Not what he'd imagined when he'd inherited this place from his father, back when Cole & Sons still meant something in this neighborhood. Now it just meant a building slowly falling apart around him. Ryan shoved the bills into a drawer and headed for the garage bay. The morning air hit him like a slap. October in Chicago, all wind and wet pavement and the kind of cold that found every gap in your jacket. Rain had been threatening since midnight, those heavy clouds that meant business. He rolled up the garage door, the metal screaming in protest. Another thing to fix. Another thing to ignore. The garage itself was a relic. Built in 1952 by Ryan's grandfather, passed to his father, then to him. 3 generations of Coles who'd believed that hard work and honest service meant something. That you could build a life turning wrenches and keeping people's cars running. His grandfather would have been ashamed to see it now. 2 bays, one of them unusable because the lift had broken last spring. A waiting area with chairs that had been old when Reagan was president. A snap-on calendar from 2019 still hanging on the wall because Ryan couldn't afford the subscription anymore. The neighborhood hadn't helped. What used to be a working-class area full of families and small businesses had slowly transformed into something else. Half gentrified, half forgotten. The new coffee shop 3 blocks down charged $8 for a latte. The old hardware store had closed last year, replaced by a boutique that sold $70 candles. Cole & Sons didn't fit anymore. Too worn out for the new crowd, too expensive for the old one. Ryan checked his schedule. 1 oil change at 9, a brake job at 11 if Mrs. Patterson's check cleared. That was it. A Thursday that would barely cover the electricity bill, let alone the rent increase his landlord had mentioned last week. Casual conversation, the landlord had called it. "Just giving you a heads up that property values are changing around here, Ryan. Might need to adjust our arrangement to reflect current market rates." Translation: Pay more or get out. Ryan pulled on his coveralls, the navy blue ones with his name stitched over the pocket in thread that was starting to fray. The same coveralls his father had worn, though Dad had filled them out better. Ryan had lost weight this past year, the kind of weight you lose when you forget to eat because you're too busy keeping everything from collapsing. He was halfway through his first coffee when he heard it. The scream of an engine pushed way past its limits. High performance, something with serious horses under the hood, coming in fast from the main road. Ryan frowned. The garage sat on a quiet side street, the kind of place you only ended up if you were lost or looking for trouble. Then he saw it. A red Ferrari, 458 Italia, his brain supplied automatically, rocketing around the corner like someone was being chased. The tires shrieked on wet asphalt as the driver overcorrected, the back end sliding out before catching grip again. Jesus Christ, Ryan muttered, stepping toward the garage opening. The Ferrari didn't slow down. It came straight at him, engine roaring, and for half a second Ryan thought he was about to be killed by the world's most expensive battering ram. Then the brakes locked up, smoke pouring off the tires as the car slid to a stop maybe 3 feet from where he stood. The driver's door opened. A woman fell out. Not stepped out. Not climbed out. Fell, like her legs had stopped working, like gravity had suddenly tripled. She hit the wet pavement hard, hands barely catching her weight, and that's when Ryan saw the blood. It was spreading across her white blouse, dark and wrong, soaking through the expensive fabric. Her face was the color of old newsprint, sweat mixing with rain, and when she looked up at him, her eyes were wild with something between pain and panic. "Don't," she gasped. "Don't call." Then she collapsed completely. Ryan moved without thinking. He was beside her in 2 strides, his hands finding her shoulders, turning her carefully onto her side. The blood was coming from her abdomen, right side, and the smell hit him. That copper metal scent mixed with something else, something organic and bad. "Hey, stay with me." His voice came out steadier than he felt. "I need you to stay with me, okay?" Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Can't, meeting, have to, you're bleeding. I'm calling an ambulance." "No!" The word came out with surprising force. Her hand shot out, grabbed his wrist with strength that seemed impossible given her condition. "No hospital, please. I can't. The meeting's at 9. $1 billion. Everything depends." Ryan stared at her. Even half-conscious and bleeding on his garage floor, this woman was beautiful in a way that seemed almost artificial. Perfect bone structure. Dark hair that probably cost more to maintain than his monthly groceries. Skin that spoke of expensive skincare and a life lived far from places like this. And she was dying. "Listen to me," Ryan said, pulling out his phone. "I don't know what meeting you're talking about, and I don't care. You need a doctor. Now." "You don't understand." Tears were mixing with the rain on her face. "Sterling Dynamics, 3,000 employees. If I don't—" She coughed, a wet sound that made Ryan's stomach clench. He dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "Woman, early 30s, severe abdominal bleeding. She's conscious but fading. Cole & Sons Auto Repair, 847 Sheffield Avenue." The woman was trying to say something, still fighting him even as her body shut down. Ryan kept one hand on her shoulder, keeping her still, while the dispatcher asked questions. "Ambulance is 4 minutes out. Is she breathing normally?" "Shallow, fast." Ryan checked her pulse, racing, thready, not good. "She's in bad shape." "Sir, I need you to keep her calm and still. Don't let her move around." The woman's eyes locked on his, and for a moment they cleared. "Please," she whispered. "My phone, center console. You have to call." "Ambulance is almost here. Save your strength. Mitchell, call Mitchell. Tell him, postpone, 24 hours. Then her eyes rolled back and she went limp. "She's unconscious." Ryan pressed his fingers to her neck, found a pulse, but barely. "Breathing's shallow." "Ambulance is turning onto your street now, sir. Stay with her." Ryan heard the sirens, saw the flash of red and white lights reflecting off the wet pavement. The ambulance pulled up and paramedics were moving before it fully stopped. A controlled explosion of urgent motion. What happened? The first paramedic, a woman with gray hair and efficient movements, was already kneeling beside the collapsed woman. "Don't know." She pulled up, fell out of the car, collapsed. Severe abdominal pain, bleeding. She kept saying she couldn't go to the hospital, something about a meeting. The second paramedic was taking vitals, calling out numbers that meant nothing to Ryan but made both EMTs move faster. Blood pressure's dropping. We need to move now. They had her on a gurney in less than a minute, IV line already going in. Ryan stood there uselessly, rain soaking through his coveralls, watching them work. Sir, do you know her name? No, she never... Wait! Ryan ran to the Ferrari, ignoring the rain that was coming down harder now. The driver's door was still open. He leaned in, grabbed a phone from the center console, a purse from the passenger seat. Designer purse, the kind that cost more than his truck. He found a wallet, flipped it open. Driver's license. Vanessa Sterling, age 30. Address in Lincoln Park, the kind of zip code where Ryan's entire garage would fit in a walk-in closet. Vanessa Sterling, he called out. The gray-haired paramedic's eyebrows went up. The Vanessa Sterling? Sterling Dynamics? Means nothing to me. Means everything to about 3,000 people who work for her. The paramedic was already on the radio, calling ahead to the hospital. We're taking her to Northwestern. You coming? Ryan looked at the Ferrari, at his empty garage, at the life he'd been living before a billionaire crashed into it. Yeah, he said. I'm coming. He grabbed his jacket, locked the garage, and climbed into the ambulance. Vanessa was gray-faced, unconscious, hooked to machines that beeped with increasing urgency. The paramedics worked with practiced efficiency, but Ryan could see the concern in their faces. What's wrong with her? He asked. Best guess? Appendicitis. Bad one. If the appendix ruptured, the paramedic didn't finish, didn't need to. The ambulance ride lasted 12 minutes that felt like hours. Ryan sat on the jump seat, holding Vanessa's purse and phone, watching machines track a stranger's failing vital signs. Every bump in the road made the monitors spike. Every red light felt like borrowed time. They hit Northwestern at full speed. The ER team was waiting, a controlled chaos of scrubs and urgent voices. Someone shouted about prepping an OR. Someone else called for a surgeon. Ryan found himself pushed to the side as the gurney disappeared through automatic doors, swallowed by the hospital's fluorescent-lit interior. He stood there in the waiting room, still holding Vanessa Sterling's purse, while rain dripped from his jacket onto the linoleum floor. A nurse appeared. Sir, are you family? No, She crashed outside my garage. I called 911. Do you know her medical history, allergies, emergency contacts? Ryan held up the purse helplessly. I know her name. That's it. The nurse took the purse, started going through it with professional efficiency. She pulled out the phone, locked, of course, then found a business card. Her expression changed. You might want to sit down, she said. This is going to be complicated. Why? Because you just saved the life of one of the richest women in Chicago. The nurse showed him the card. Vanessa Sterling, founder and CEO, Sterling Dynamics. And from what I'm hearing, she's supposed to be in a boardroom right now, signing the biggest deal in her company's history. Ryan sat down. The waiting room was the same as every waiting room he'd ever been in. Too bright, too quiet, filled with people trying not to think about why they were there. He recognized the smell, antiseptic and fear. The same smell from when Sarah had been sick, when the cancer had spread, when the doctors had finally admitted there was nothing more they could do. He pushed the memory away, focused on the present problem. Vanessa Sterling, billionaire, bleeding out in his garage because why? Why had she been driving like that? Why had she been so desperate to avoid the hospital? What kind of meeting was worth dying for? His phone buzzed. Mia, texting from school despite the rules against it. You okay? Saw ambulance on the news near the garage. Ryan's heart clenched. Of course she'd seen it. Of course she was worried. I'm fine, sweetheart. Everything's okay. See you after school. A lie, but the kind of lie parents told. An hour passed, then another. Ryan called Mrs. Patterson, rescheduled the brake job, called the customer scheduled for the oil change, apologized, offered a discount he couldn't afford. His entire day, his entire week, disappearing because he'd decided to care about a stranger. Mr. Cole? Ryan looked up to find a doctor in surgical scrubs standing over him. The name tag read Dr. Amelia Rodriguez. You're the one who called 911? Yeah, how is she? Dr. Rodriguez sat down beside him, the way doctors did when the news was complicated. Ruptured appendix. We caught it just in time. Another 30 minutes, and we'd be having a very different conversation. She's going to be okay. She'll need to stay here for observation, antibiotics, rest. But yes, she should make a full recovery. The doctor paused. You saved her life. If you hadn't called when you did, she didn't want me to call, kept saying something about a meeting. I heard. Dr. Rodriguez's expression turned grim. There are about 50 messages on her phone from someone named Mitchell, increasingly panicked. Something about investors waiting, a deal falling apart. Ryan thought about that, about a woman so dedicated to her work that she'd rather die than miss a meeting, about 3,000 employees depending on decisions made in boardrooms Ryan would never see. Can I see her? She's in recovery, still sedated, but... Dr. Rodriguez hesitated. There's a problem. A man showed up about 20 minutes ago, said he's her CFO. He's demanding to see her, making calls, causing chaos. Security's involved. It's complicated. What kind of complicated? The kind where $1 billion company might be in crisis, and the only person who can fix it is unconscious in recovery. The doctor stood up. Come on, I have a feeling this is about to get messier. She wasn't wrong. The hallway outside the recovery ward looked like a corporate battlefield. A man in a $3,000 suit was arguing with hospital security, his voice rising with each denial. Two women in equally expensive business attire stood nearby, frantically typing on phones. Everyone looked stressed, expensive, and completely out of place in a hospital corridor. I don't care about your protocols, the man was shouting. I represent Sterling Dynamics, and I need to speak with Ms. Sterling immediately. We have investors waiting for a signature that was supposed to happen 2 hours ago. Sir, she's in recovery from emergency surgery. She's not conscious. Then wake her up. Do you have any idea what's at stake here? Ryan recognized the type. He'd met plenty of them over the years, the guys who drove their BMWs into the shop and spent the whole time on phone calls, treating mechanics like servants, acting like the world stopped turning without their input. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. Mr. Mitchell, Howard Mitchell, CFO of Sterling Dynamics. The man turned, took in the doctor's surgical scrubs, recalculated his approach. Doctor, I apologize for the disruption, but this is a genuine emergency. Ms. Sterling needs to recover from surgery that saved her life. Dr. Rodriguez's voice had gone ice-cold professional. She's unconscious. She'll remain unconscious for at least another 2 hours. Whatever crisis you're managing will have to wait. You don't understand. There are investors in a conference room downtown right now. Japanese investors who flew in specifically for this meeting. If Vanessa doesn't show up, if she doesn't sign... Mitchell ran a hand through his hair, the first crack in his professional armor. The deal falls apart. Sterling Dynamics loses the biggest partnership in its history. 3 years of negotiations, gone. How much? Ryan heard himself ask. Everyone turned to look at him. Mitchell's eyes narrowed, taking in the coveralls, the grease still on Ryan's hands, the complete absence of anything that suggested he belonged in this conversation. Excuse me? The deal. How much is it worth? $1.3 billion. Mitchell said it like he was explaining gravity to a child. Not that it's any concern of yours, Mr. Cole. Ryan Cole. I'm the one who called 911. Mitchell's expression shifted slightly. Then I suppose we owe you thanks, but that doesn't... What happens if she doesn't sign? If the deal falls apart? The Japanese investors walk. They've got 3 other companies lined up, all competing for the same partnership. Sterling Dynamics was their first choice, but only if we moved fast. If Vanessa doesn't show up, doesn't sign the paperwork, they'll assume we're not serious and move to the next option. Mitchell checked his watch. We've got maybe 3 hours before this whole thing implodes. Can't you sign it? No. The terms specifically require Vanessa's signature. She insisted on maintaining final approval for any deal that affects company direction. It's in the bylaws. Ryan looked at Dr. Rodriguez. When will she wake up? 5 hours minimum, probably longer. Mitchell swore quietly, pulled out his phone, started typing furiously. One of the women in business attire stepped forward. Howard, the investors are calling again. They're threatening to leave by noon if we don't have an explanation. Tell them, Mitchell stopped, seemed to deflate. I don't know what to tell them. Ryan watched the fear creep into the CFO's face, the same fear he'd seen in his own mirror plenty of times. The fear of failing, of letting people down, of watching something you built fall apart because of circumstances beyond your control. He thought about Vanessa, fighting consciousness to warn him about this meeting, about 3,000 employees he'd never meet, about choices that echoed. What if someone went to the meeting? Ryan said quietly. Everyone looked at him again. What if someone went to the investors, explained the situation, asked for a postponement? Mitchell laughed, but there was no humor in it. And who exactly would that someone be? You? No offense, Mr. Cole, but you're a mechanic, yeah. Ryan met the CFO's eyes. I'm a mechanic. I fix things. And right now your boss is in no condition to fix this herself. The investors won't postpone for a stranger. They might for someone who saved her life. Someone who can explain exactly why she can't be there. Ryan could feel his heart pounding, could feel himself stepping off a cliff into nothing. Someone who doesn't have anything to gain by lying to them. Mitchell stared at him like he'd suggested flying to the moon. You're serious? Vanessa almost died trying to get to that meeting. Least I can do is try to save it. You have no idea what you're talking about. These are serious people. International investors, corporate attorneys, board members who eat pressure for breakfast. They'll destroy you in seconds. Probably. Ryan shrugged. But what's your alternative? The hallway went quiet. Somewhere a monitor beeped. Someone's phone buzzed. Mitchell looked at his colleagues, at the doctor, at Ryan standing there in grease-stained coveralls with absolutely no business being part of this conversation. This is insane, Mitchell finally said. Yeah. You'll need to clean up, borrow a suit. We'll have to brief you on the basic terms, coach you on what to say, how to handle. No coaching. Ryan shook his head. I go as I am. I tell them the truth. That's the only way this works. That's the only way this fails. Then it fails. But at least someone tried. Mitchell looked like he wanted to argue, but Dr. Rodriguez cut in. Mr. Mitchell, you have 3 hours. Are you going to spend them debating or planning? The CFO checked his watch again, swore more creatively this time, then pulled out his phone. Fine. Absolutely insane, but fine. He looked at Ryan. The meeting's at Sterling Tower, downtown, 40th floor. You'll need to be there by 11:30 to have any chance of catching them before they leave. I'll need a ride. My truck's back at the garage. Take Vanessa's Ferrari. Keys are probably still in it. Ryan thought about that gleaming red car, about pulling up to a billion-dollar meeting in something worth more than his garage. That's the least absurd part of this whole plan. Mitchell handed him a business card. My direct number. Call me when you get there. I'll have the legal team send you the basic talking points, but honestly, if you're going in without coaching, talking points won't matter. He paused. Just make them understand that Vanessa Sterling doesn't quit. Not for illness, not for anything. This is a delay, not a cancellation. Ryan took the card. What if they don't believe me? Then we're all unemployed by Monday, and you can go back to fixing cars. Mitchell's face was grim. No pressure. Dr. Rodriguez put a hand on Ryan's shoulder. You don't have to do this. I know. Vanessa won't even remember asking you. She was barely conscious. I know that too. Then why? Ryan thought about Mia, about the garage, about a life spent watching things fall apart while he tried desperately to hold them together, about a woman who'd rather die than fail the people depending on her. Because someone should, he said. 20 minutes later, Ryan found himself behind the wheel of a Ferrari 458 Italia, heading toward downtown Chicago to attend a billion-dollar business meeting he had no business being part of. The car handled like a dream, all power and precision, completely foreign compared to his beat-up truck. His phone buzzed. Mitchell sending a document labeled Deal Overview Confidential. Ryan ignored it. If he was doing this, he was doing it his way. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed clean and gleaming. Traffic moved with the rhythm of late morning, business people heading to meetings, delivery trucks making their rounds, the machinery of commerce grinding forward regardless of individual crisis. Ryan had been to the financial district exactly twice in his life. Once for a school field trip when he was 12. Once when Sarah had wanted to see the Christmas lights at Millennium Park, back when she could still walk without getting tired. The buildings towered overhead, glass and steel monuments to money and power. Sterling Tower was one of the newer ones, all sharp angles and reflective surfaces, the kind of architecture that said, "We're important," in every line. He pulled up to the valet station. A young guy in a vest approached, then stopped when he saw the Ferrari. "Sir, this area is for—" "Oh." Recognition dawned. "Is that Ms. Sterling's car?" "She's in the hospital. Emergency surgery. I'm here for the 11:30 meeting." The valet's eyes went wide. "Is she okay?" "She will be. Where do I park?" "I'll take care of it, sir." The valet held open the door with the kind of reverence reserved for religious artifacts. "The elevator to the executive floors is through the main lobby. You'll need to check in with security." Ryan climbed out, handed over the keys, and walked into Sterling Tower feeling like the world's most obvious imposter. The lobby was designed to intimidate. Marble floors, 30-foot ceilings, abstract art that probably cost more than Ryan's life. Security desk dead ahead, manned by two guards who looked like they meant business. "Can I help you?" The older guard's tone suggested he already knew Ryan didn't belong. "I'm here for the 11:30 meeting, 40th floor." "Name?" "Ryan Cole." The guard checked his tablet, frowned. "You're not on the list." "I know." "Call Howard Mitchell, CFO. He'll verify." The guard's expression said he'd heard that before, but he made the call anyway. A brief conversation, his eyebrows rising higher with each exchange, then he hung up. "Mr. Mitchell says to send you up. 40th floor, conference room A." The guard handed Ryan a visitor badge. "Sir, I don't know what's going on, but good luck." "Thanks. I'll need it." The elevator ride lasted 40 seconds and felt like descent into another world. The doors opened onto a reception area that screamed money. More art, more marble, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A woman in her 50s, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed, stood waiting. "Mr. Cole, I'm Patricia Vance, Ms. Sterling's executive assistant." Her voice was polite, but her eyes were doing math, calculating exactly how badly this was about to go. "Mr. Mitchell briefed me on the situation. The investors are in conference room A. They're not pleased." "I wouldn't be either. I should warn you, these are not patient people. They've been waiting for almost 3 hours. The lead investor, Mr. Tanaka, has already made 2 calls to his team in Tokyo." "What should I expect?" Patricia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Honestly, they'll probably throw you out in under 5 minutes. But Mitchell thinks this is worth trying, so—" She gestured toward a set of double doors. "Conference room A. I'll be at my desk if you need anything. Though if this goes as badly as I expect, you'll be back out here before I finish my coffee." Ryan walked to the doors, took a breath, and pushed through. The conference room was exactly what he'd imagined. Long table, leather chairs, view of the city, and 8 people in expensive suits, all turning to stare at him like he'd just wandered in from another planet. At the head of the table sat a Japanese man in his 60s, silver hair, expression completely neutral. "Mr. Tanaka," Ryan guessed. Flanking him were 2 younger associates, both watching Ryan with the intensity of predators assessing prey. On the other side of the table were 4 Americans in business attire, all looking various degrees of stressed and confused. "Who the hell are you?" This from one of the Americans, a man with red hair and a tie that probably cost more than Ryan's best suit. "Ryan Cole. I'm here about Vanessa Sterling." "Where is she?" Tanaka's English was perfect, his tone carefully controlled. "We were told Miss Sterling would be here at 9 o'clock. It is now nearly noon. She's in the hospital, emergency surgery, her appendix ruptured. If she hadn't gotten treatment when she did, she'd be dead." The room went silent. "Is this some kind of stalling tactic?" The red-haired American stood up. "Because if Sterling Dynamics thinks they can—" "Sit down, Marcus." Tanaka's voice was quiet, but carried absolute authority. The red-haired man sat. Tanaka turned his attention fully to Ryan. "Mr. Cole, you say Miss Sterling is in surgery. How do you know this?" "Because I called the ambulance. She collapsed outside my auto shop about 3 hours ago. I rode with her to the hospital." "And you are—" "What? Her driver?" "Mechanic. She showed up bleeding, crashed her car into my parking lot, passed out on the pavement." Ryan met Tanaka's eyes. "She kept saying she couldn't go to the hospital, that she had a meeting, that everything depended on it. One of the younger Japanese associates leaned in, whispered something to Tanaka. The older man nodded slowly. Mr. Cole, I appreciate you taking the time to inform us, but this doesn't change our situation. We have a signed agreement that requires Ms. Sterling's personal approval and signature. Without her presence, she asked me to ask you for 24 hours. Excuse me? Before she lost consciousness. She said to postpone the meeting 24 hours. Give her time to recover. Ryan pulled out his phone, showed them a photo he'd taken at the hospital. Vanessa on the gurney, unconscious, hooked to machines. This woman almost died trying to get here. She's not quitting on you. She just needs time. Tanaka studied the photo, his expression unreadable. This is highly irregular. Yeah, well, so is emergency surgery. The red-haired American, Marcus, laughed without humor. This is absurd. We've been negotiating this deal for 3 years. 3 years of flights, meetings, legal reviews. And now, on the day we're supposed to sign, their CEO doesn't show up and sends, no offense, a mechanic to ask for more time. I'm not asking for more time. Ryan kept his voice level. Vanessa is. And yeah, I'm just a mechanic. I fix cars. I don't know anything about billion-dollar deals or corporate partnerships, but I know when someone's fighting to keep their word, and Vanessa Sterling was fighting. Fighting, Marcus repeated mockingly. She was too sick to show up. That's not fighting. That's failure to execute. She was driving herself here while her appendix was rupturing. Most people would have called 911 immediately. She kept trying to make it to this meeting even while bleeding internally. Ryan looked around the table. I don't know any of you. Don't know your companies or your deals, but I know dedication when I see it. And if you can't recognize that Vanessa values this partnership enough to literally risk her life for it, then maybe you're not the kind of partner she needs. The room went very quiet. Tanaka's expression finally shifted, something almost like respect flickering across his face. He turned to his associates, spoke rapidly in Japanese. They responded in kind, a brief conversation Ryan couldn't follow. Then Tanaka stood. Mr. Cole, please convey to Ms. Sterling our wishes for her swift recovery. He gathered his papers, sliding them into a briefcase with precise movements. We will return to Tokyo this evening as planned. Ryan's stomach sank. He'd failed. Tried his best and failed anyway. However, Tanaka continued, we will return to Chicago in exactly 72 hours. That should give Ms. Sterling adequate time to recover. If she is well enough to attend the rescheduled meeting, we will proceed with the partnership. If not, he paused. Then we will know Sterling Dynamics is not the stable organization we believed it to be. 3 days, Ryan said. She'll be there. See that she is. Tanaka extended his hand. You're an unusual messenger, Mr. Cole, but you delivered your message well. They shook. Tanaka's grip was firm, assessing. The Japanese investors filed out, followed by their American counterparts, leaving Ryan alone in the conference room with its view of Chicago and the slowly sinking realization of what he'd just done. His phone rang. Mitchell. Tell me they didn't leave, the CFO said without preamble. They left, but they're coming back in 3 days. 3. What did you say to them? The truth. Mitchell made a sound between a laugh and a sob. You actually did it. You insane grease-covered miracle worker, you actually did it. Vanessa needs to be ready in 72 hours. Can she do that? She'll have to. I'll coordinate with her doctors, make sure she has everything she needs. Mitchell paused. Cole, I misjudged you. We all did. Yeah, well, I'm used to that. Ryan hung up, took one last look at the view from 40 stories up. The city spread out like a promise, then headed for the elevator. Patricia was waiting by her desk when he emerged. Her expression had transformed from polite skepticism to genuine shock. Mr. Tanaka's assistant just called. They're rescheduling for Friday. She stared at Ryan like he'd performed magic. How did you... Nobody says no to Mr. Tanaka. Nobody makes him wait. How did you convince him? I didn't convince him of anything. I just told him about Vanessa. The real Vanessa or the corporate myth? Is there a difference? Patricia smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. There shouldn't be, but in this world there usually is. She handed Ryan a business card. If you ever need anything, Mr. Cole. I mean that. Ryan took the card, nodded his thanks, and headed for the elevator. The ride down felt different than the ride up. Same elevator, same building, but Ryan felt like he was carrying something new. A glimpse into a world he'd never imagined being part of. Proof that maybe honesty still mattered even in places built on money and power. The Ferrari was waiting at the valet station. Ryan tipped the attendant, climbed behind the wheel, and headed back toward the hospital. His phone buzzed constantly. Mitchell coordinating with the medical team. Someone from Sterling Dynamics' legal department asking for his statement about the meeting. A message from Patricia with contact information for Vanessa's family. Ryan ignored all of it until he was parked outside Northwestern, sitting in a car worth more than his annual income, trying to process the fact that he'd just saved $1 billion deal by telling the truth. His phone rang. Mia's school. "Mr. Cole, this is Principal Morrison. Mia's fine, but we need you to come pick her up. She's extremely upset and won't stop crying. Something about seeing the garage on the news?" Ryan's heart stopped. "I'm on my way." He made it to the school in 15 minutes, ran every yellow light, found Mia sitting in the principal's office with tear-streaked cheeks and that look she got when she was trying to be brave but failing. "Daddy!" She launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Hey, sweetheart, I'm okay. Everything's okay." The news said someone got hurt at the garage. They showed ambulances and police, and I thought, not me, someone else, a lady who needed help. Ryan knelt down, looked into his daughter's eyes. "I'm fine. Promise. You should have texted me." "You're right. I'm sorry." Principal Morrison cleared her throat. "Mr. Cole, given the circumstances, we understand if you want to take Mia home for the day." "Yeah, thanks." They walked out to the Ferrari. Mia stopped dead when she saw it. "Whose car is that?" "The lady's. The one who got hurt. I'm borrowing it." "She must be really rich." "She is." Mia climbed into the passenger seat, running her hands over the leather. "This is the nicest car I've ever been in." "Me too, kiddo." They drove home in comfortable silence. Mia watching the city roll by through the window. Ryan trying to figure out how to explain the day's events in terms a 7-year-old would understand. When they pulled up to the garage, Mia finally spoke. "Is the lady going to be okay?" "Yeah, she had surgery. She'll be fine." "That's good." Mia unbuckled her seatbelt. "You did a good thing, Daddy." "I just called 911. "No, you helped her." Mia looked at him seriously. "That's what you do. You help people." Ryan felt something crack in his chest. The same crack that happened every time his daughter saw the best in him when he couldn't see it himself. "Come on," he said. "Let's get inside." They spent the afternoon like they always did. Mia doing homework at the desk in the office, while Ryan caught up on paperwork he'd been avoiding. The garage was quiet. No customers, no emergencies, just the familiar comfort of a space 3 generations had worked in. Around 5 o'clock, Ryan's phone rang. Hospital. "Mr. Cole, this is Dr. Rodriguez. Ms. Sterling is awake and asking for you." "Asking for me?" "Specifically, can you come back?" Ryan looked at Mia, at the homework spread across the desk, at the life he'd always known. "Yeah," he said. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." Mrs. Chen from next door agreed to watch Mia without asking questions, which was one of the things Ryan appreciated most about her. She'd lived in the neighborhood for 40 years, had known Ryan's father, and understood that sometimes life required flexibility without explanation. "Take your time," Mrs. Chen said, already guiding Mia toward her apartment where the smell of something cooking promised dinner better than anything Ryan would have managed. "We'll make dumplings." Mia's face lit up despite her earlier tears. "Can I help fold them?" "Only if you promise not to make them as ugly as last time." They weren't ugly, they were creative. Ryan watched them disappear inside, felt the familiar guilt of relying on neighbors' kindness because he couldn't afford real childcare, then pushed it down and headed for his truck. The Ferrari was still parked outside the garage, gleaming and expensive and completely wrong for this neighborhood. He'd return it later. Right now, he needed the familiar comfort of his beat-up Ford, the one with the check engine light that had been on for 3 months and the passenger door that stuck in humid weather. The drive to Northwestern took 30 minutes in evening traffic. Ryan spent most of it trying to figure out what he'd say to Vanessa Sterling. The woman had been unconscious when he'd left, hooked to machines, barely alive. Now she was awake and asking for him specifically. Why? To thank him? To ask about the meeting? To wonder why some stranger had taken her car and crashed her billion-dollar deal? He parked in the visitor lot, paid the exorbitant fee, and made his way through the hospital's maze of corridors. The recovery ward was on the 8th floor, past the gift shop that sold flowers nobody wanted, and the cafeteria that smelled like industrial cleaning products masquerading as food. Dr. Rodriguez met him at the nurse's station. She's stable, the doctor said before Ryan could ask. Vitals are good. No complications from the surgery. We'll keep her another 48 hours for observation, but she should make a full recovery. That's good. Mr. Cole, I should warn you. She's been asking questions about the meeting, about what happened, about you. I told her to rest, but she's persistent. Yeah, I got that impression. Dr. Rodriguez led him down a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and recycled air. Room 847. Try not to let her get too worked up. She just had major surgery. The door was partially open. Ryan knocked anyway. Come in. The voice was stronger than he'd expected, considering he'd last heard it begging him not to call an ambulance. Vanessa Sterling was sitting up in the hospital bed, still pale, but significantly more alive than this morning. An IV ran to her left arm. Monitors beeped quietly beside her. She'd changed from the blood-soaked designer blouse into a hospital gown that made her look almost human, almost vulnerable. Her eyes locked onto Ryan the moment he entered. You're the mechanic. Ryan Cole. I remember you, barely, but I remember. She gestured to a chair beside the bed. Sit, please. I've been waiting 3 hours to yell at you properly. Ryan sat. Yell at me? You called 911 when I specifically told you not to. You were dying. I was handling it. By bleeding out in my parking lot? Vanessa's jaw tightened. For a moment she looked like she wanted to argue, then something crumbled and she laughed, a short, bitter sound. Okay, fair point. The doctor said another 30 minutes and I would have been dead. So, thank you for ignoring me and saving my life. You're welcome. Now tell me about the meeting. Ryan had expected this. He pulled out his phone, showed her the messages from Mitchell. Your CFO can explain better than I can, but the short version is, I went. The investors were pissed. I told them what happened. They agreed to reschedule for Friday. Vanessa stared at him like he'd announced the moon was made of cheese. You went to the meeting? Yeah. To Sterling Tower, to face Tanaka and his team? Yeah. You're a mechanic. You mentioned that already. I'm trying to understand why a mechanic would walk into a boardroom full of international investors and... She stopped, shook her head. What did you tell them? The truth, that you were in surgery, that you'd almost died trying to get there, that you needed 3 days to recover. And they agreed? Just like that? Not just like that. One guy, Marcus, red hair, he wanted to walk. Called the whole thing a stalling tactic, but Tanaka listened. Vanessa closed her eyes. Marcus Reeves. He's been trying to kill this deal for months, works for Consolidated Tech, one of our competitors. He's probably celebrating right now, thinking this delay will give him time to undermine everything. He seemed like an asshole. He is an asshole. A powerful, well-connected asshole who wants Sterling Dynamics to fail. She opened her eyes, focused on Ryan with an intensity that was slightly unnerving. Tell me exactly what you said, word for word. Ryan recounted the meeting as best he could remember. Vanessa listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from concern to surprise to something that might have been respect. You told them I was fighting, she said when he finished, that I valued the partnership enough to risk my life. Seemed true. It was true. Is true. Vanessa's voice dropped. 3 years of negotiations, 3 years of 18-hour days and flights to Tokyo and rewriting contracts and proving to Tanaka that Sterling Dynamics deserves this partnership. And this morning I woke up with what I thought was food poisoning and tried to push through it because that's what I always do. Push through. Keep going. Never show weakness. How'd that work out? I collapsed in a stranger's parking lot and had emergency surgery. So, not great. She shifted in the bed, winced. The doctor said you rode in the ambulance with me, stayed at the hospital, went to the meeting even though you had no obligation to do any of it. Why? Ryan thought about how to answer that. You asked me to. I was barely conscious. You could have ignored me. Yeah, but you didn't. No. Vanessa studied him with those sharp eyes, the same eyes that had looked up at him from the wet pavement this morning. Most people would have called 911 and moved on with their day. The fact that you didn't, I don't know if that makes you incredibly kind or incredibly stupid. Probably both. She smiled, a real smile this time. I'm going to pay you for your time, for using your garage, for going to the meeting. Name a number. No. Ryan, I didn't do it for money. Then why? Because someone needed help and I was there. Ryan leaned back in the chair. I've spent the last 3 years watching my own life fall apart. My garage is failing. I can barely afford to keep the lights on. Every day is just surviving. And this morning, a woman crashed into my life dying, begging me not to let her fail. And I thought, maybe I can stop one thing from falling apart. Just one thing. The room went quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Your garage is failing? Vanessa asked finally. Yeah. Why? Ryan laughed without humor. Why does any small business fail? Competition from chains, rising costs, neighborhood changing around me. My grandfather built that place in the 50s. My dad ran it for 40 years. I've been running it for 5 and I'm watching it die. You have a daughter. It wasn't a question. Ryan wondered how she knew, then remembered. He'd probably mentioned Mia at some point during the chaos. 7 years old, smart as hell, wants to be an astronaut. And her mother? Died 4 years ago. Cancer. Vanessa's expression shifted. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. Ryan stood up. Look, I just came to make sure you were okay. The doctors said you'll be fine, the meeting's rescheduled, so I should go. My daughter's with a neighbor and I need to get back. Wait. Vanessa's voice stopped him at the door. Friday. The meeting. I need you there. What? I need you at the meeting with Tanaka. Why would you? I'm not part of this. I just delivered a message. You delivered more than a message. You convinced Tanaka to give me a second chance when nobody else could have. Vanessa's voice was firm despite the hospital gown and IV. These investors respond to authenticity. They've spent 3 years dealing with corporate lawyers and carefully worded presentations. Then you walk in, a mechanic in work clothes, and tell them the unvarnished truth. That matters. I don't know anything about your business. You don't need to. You just need to be there. Show them that Sterling Dynamics is the kind of company where the CEO values the opinion of... She paused. What did you call yourself? A mechanic who fixes things? I'm not going to be your prop. I'm not asking you to be a prop. I'm asking you to... Vanessa stopped, seemed to reconsider. Okay. Bad start. Let me try again. I spent 3 years building this deal, and I almost lost it because I was too stubborn to admit I needed help. You helped me anyway. Now I'm asking, not as your boss or your client, but as someone who owes you, please be there Friday. Not to perform, not to impress anyone, just to remind me that there are still people in the world who do the right thing without expecting anything in return. Ryan looked at her, this billionaire in a hospital bed, asking a favor from someone who had nothing she could possibly need. Fine, he said, but I'm wearing my coveralls. I wouldn't have it any other way. The next 3 days blurred together in a way that felt both surreal and oddly normal. Ryan returned to the garage, tried to catch up on the work he'd missed, and found himself fielding questions from neighbors who'd seen the ambulance and wanted details he couldn't give. Mia asked about the rich lady every night at dinner. Is she better yet? Getting there. When are you giving back her car? Soon? Can I see it again before you do? Maybe. Thursday afternoon, Mitchell called. Vanessa's being discharged tomorrow morning, against medical advice, but she's insisting. The meeting's at 2 p.m. Can you be there? Yeah. Same building, same conference room. Dress code is... Mitchell paused. Actually, Vanessa said you're wearing coveralls. Is that true? That's what I told her. Of course it is. Mitchell sounded tired. Look, Cole, I'm going to level with you. This deal is make or break for us. If it goes through, Sterling Dynamics becomes a major player in international tech development. If it falls apart, we're vulnerable to acquisition, hostile acquisition. There are people who want to see us fail, like Marcus Reeves. exactly like Marcus Reeves. Consolidated Tech has been circling for months. If Tanaka walks, Marcus will make his move within a week. What does that mean for your employees? Layoffs, restructuring. Everything Vanessa built gets dismantled and sold for parts. Mitchell's voice was grim. 3,000 people lose their jobs, including me. Ryan thought about that. About 3,000 families depending on a meeting tomorrow. About the weight Vanessa had been carrying when she'd driven herself to the hospital dying. She'll be okay tomorrow? For the meeting? She'll be there. Whether she's okay is a different question. Friday morning arrived with unexpected sunshine, the kind of October day that felt like summer's last apology before winter moved in. Ryan dropped Mia at school, came back to the garage, and stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror. He looked like what he was, a 32-year-old mechanic with permanent grease under his fingernails and a face that had aged faster than it should have. The coveralls were clean at least, washed last night, and still slightly damp this morning. His name was stitched over the pocket in blue thread, Ryan. His phone buzzed. Patricia Vance, Vanessa's assistant. Mr. Cole, Miss Sterling asked me to send a car for you. It'll be there at noon. I can drive. She was quite insistent. The car will be there at noon. The car turned out to be a black Lincoln Town Car driven by a man in his 60s who introduced himself as James and seemed completely unsurprised to be picking up a mechanic in coveralls. Miss Sterling speaks highly of you, James said as they merged onto the highway. She barely knows me. She knows enough. James glanced in the rearview mirror. I've worked for Miss Sterling for 5 years. In that time, I've seen her trust perhaps 3 people completely. You're one of them now. Based on what? One conversation in a hospital? Based on the fact that you helped her without wanting anything in return. In her world, that's rarer than you'd think. They arrived at Sterling Tower at 1:30. James pulled up to the executive entrance, handed Ryan off to Patricia like a relay race. Conference room A, Patricia said, leading him through corridors he half remembered from his first visit. Ms. Sterling is already inside. The investors arrive at 2. How is she? Stubborn? In pain? Refusing to admit either. Patricia stopped outside the conference room doors. She's going to push herself too hard. If you see her struggling, say something. She might actually listen to you. The conference room looked exactly the same as Monday. Long table, leather chairs, view of Chicago. But Vanessa was different. She stood by the windows wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than Ryan's truck. Her hair pulled back severely, every inch the Billionaire CEO. But her face was still pale, and Ryan could see the way she held herself, carefully, like any sudden movement might tear something. You came, she said. Said I would. You're wearing the coveralls. Said I would do that too. Vanessa smiled. Have you ever been in a business meeting before? Any business meeting? No. Then let me give you the basics. Tanaka will ask questions. I'll answer most of them. You're here as... She paused. Actually, I'm not sure what you're here as. Moral support? Evidence that I have at least one person in my life who isn't on the payroll? I thought I was here to remind you that people do the right thing. That too. Vanessa moved to the table, sat down carefully. Ryan noticed her wince. The doctors wanted me to wait another week, said I was risking complications. But if I wait, Tanaka moves on, so here I am. You could have rescheduled again? No, Tanaka gave me one extension. Asking for another would signal weakness. In this business, weakness gets you eaten alive. Ryan sat down across from her. That sounds exhausting. It is. Every single day. Vanessa looked at him. You asked why I was driving myself to the meeting instead of calling an ambulance. This is why. Because showing vulnerability, admitting I needed help, could have cost me everything. Did cost you everything. Almost. But didn't, because you helped me anyway. The door opened. Mitchell entered, followed by 3 people Ryan didn't recognize, all in expensive suits, all carrying tablets and briefcases. Vanessa. Mitchell's relief was visible. You look like I just had surgery? Yeah, she gestured to the others. Ryan Cole, this is our legal team. Sandra Yang, corporate attorney. David Morrison, contracts. And Rachel Chen, who handles international partnerships. They nodded at Ryan with expressions that ranged from curious to skeptical. Sandra looked like she wanted to ask what he was doing there, but was too professional to voice it. Tanaka's team just entered the building, Mitchell said, checking his phone. ETA 5 minutes. Good. Vanessa pulled a folder from her briefcase, winced again. Let's review the key terms one more time. For the next 4 minutes, Ryan listened to a conversation that might as well have been in another language. Revenue shares, equity positions, technology transfers, market access clauses. The legal team fired questions. Vanessa answered with the kind of precision that made it clear she knew every detail of this deal by heart. Then the door opened and Tanaka entered, flanked by his 2 associates and, unfortunately, Marcus Reeves. Ms. Sterling. Tanaka's face was professionally neutral. I'm pleased to see you recovered. Thank you for the extension, Mr. Tanaka. I apologize for the inconvenience. Inconvenience? Marcus laughed, settling into a chair like he owned the room. That's one word for it. Personally, I'd call it unprofessional. Missing the most important meeting of your company's history because you couldn't manage your own health. I had emergency surgery, Vanessa said calmly, which you wouldn't have needed if you'd taken care of yourself. But that's the Sterling Dynamics way, isn't it? All crisis management, no actual management. Ryan watched Vanessa's jaw tighten, saw her preparing some cutting corporate response, and decided he was done being quiet. You always this much of an asshole, or is today special? The room went silent. Marcus turned to stare at Ryan like he'd just noticed a stain on the carpet. Excuse me? I asked if you're always this much of an asshole. Ryan kept his voice conversational. Because Vanessa nearly died trying to get to this meeting. Her appendix ruptured. She was bleeding internally. Most people would show a little basic human decency about that, but you're here making it about professional weakness. So yeah, asshole. Marcus's face went red. Who the hell do you think you— Ryan Cole. I'm the mechanic who called 911 when Vanessa collapsed outside my garage. Also the guy who went to the meeting Monday and convinced Mr. Tanaka to give her another chance. So I've got a pretty good understanding of what happened and why. One of Tanaka's associates whispered something in Japanese. Tanaka's expression remained neutral, but Ryan caught the hint of amusement in his eyes. Mr. Cole, Tanaka said, it's good to see you again. I wasn't aware you'd be joining us today. Vanessa asked me to be here. Figured I owed her that much. Indeed. Tanaka turned to Marcus. Mr. Reeves, perhaps we could focus on the business at hand rather than personal commentary. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, then thought better of it. He sat back, arms crossed, radiating hostility. Vanessa shot Ryan a look that was part gratitude, part what the hell are you doing? He shrugged. Shall we begin? Tanaka opened his briefcase, pulled out documents. Ms. Sterling, I've reviewed the revised terms you sent over. The adjustments to the technology sharing agreement are acceptable. However, I have concerns about the timeline for market entry. For the next 90 minutes, Ryan watched Vanessa negotiate with the kind of skill that made it obvious why she'd built a billion-dollar company before turning 31. She was sharp, prepared, and completely unwilling to back down on points that mattered while gracefully conceding on things that didn't. Tanaka matched her move for move, a chess game played in corporate language. Marcus tried to derail the conversation twice. Both times Vanessa shut him down with facts and precision. The second time, one of Tanaka's associates actually smiled. Around 3:30, Vanessa reached for her water glass and Ryan saw her hand shake. Barely noticeable, but he'd been watching her closely enough to catch it. She was running on fumes and force of will. Mr. Tanaka, Ryan said, interrupting a discussion about quarterly reporting structures. Could we take a 10-minute break? Everyone looked at him. A break? Tanaka's eyebrow raised. We're nearly finished with the preliminary review. Yeah, but Vanessa just had major surgery 2 days ago, and she's been sitting here for 90 minutes without rest, so 10 minutes. I'm fine, Vanessa said quickly. You're shaking. I'm fine, she repeated, steel in her voice. Ms. Sterling, Tanaka said quietly, perhaps a brief recess would be appropriate. We've covered substantial ground. A short break will allow everyone to review the discussed terms. Vanessa looked like she wanted to protest, then nodded stiffly. 10 minutes. The room cleared. Tanaka and his team retreated to one corner, speaking in low Japanese. Marcus left entirely, probably to make phone calls about how the meeting was going. The legal team huddled around Mitchell, going over documents. Ryan stayed in his chair. Vanessa stayed in hers, both hands pressed flat against the table like she was holding herself upright through sheer determination. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yeah, I did. You look like you're about to pass out." "I'm managing." "Barely." "It's enough." She closed her eyes. "I just need to get through this meeting, sign the papers, then I can collapse." "Why does it have to be today? Why not next week when you've actually recovered?" "Because next week Marcus will have had time to poison Tanaka against us. Because next week something else will go wrong. Because in business, momentum matters, and right now we have it." Vanessa opened her eyes. "You called Marcus an asshole." "He is an asshole. He's also representing a competitor who wants to acquire Sterling Dynamics. Every word we say here gets reported back to his bosses. You insulting him could have consequences." "Good. Maybe he'll remember to have some basic humanity next time." Vanessa laughed, then winced. "Don't make me laugh. It hurts." "Then stop being stubborn and admit you're in pain." "If I admit I'm in pain, I show weakness. If I show weakness, someone might realize you're human?" "Yeah, that'd be terrible." She stared at him. "You really don't understand how this world works, do you?" "I understand that you're killing yourself trying to prove something to people who don't actually care about you." Ryan leaned forward. "I've been watching you for 90 minutes. You know every number, every clause, every detail of this deal. Tanaka knows it too. He's not here because he thinks you're weak. He's here because he respects what you've built." "How do you know that?" "Because he rescheduled when I asked him to. Because he's been negotiating with you for 3 years instead of moving to one of the other companies he mentioned. Because every time Marcus tries to undermine you, Tanaka shuts him down." Ryan sat back. "You've already won, Vanessa. You just have to stop being afraid you're going to lose." "I'm not afraid." "You're terrified. I get it. I live with that fear every day. Fear that the garage will fail, that I won't be able to provide for Mia, that I'm letting down 3 generations of my family. But fear doesn't go away by pretending it's not there." Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. "Your daughter, Mia. What would you do if this garage thing, what would you do if it all fell apart? Figure something else out, find another job, move to a cheaper neighborhood, whatever it takes. That easy? Not easy. Necessary." Ryan checked his watch. "Break's almost over. You ready?" "No, but I'll manage." The meeting resumed at 4 p.m. This time Vanessa's hands didn't shake, and when she answered Tanaka's questions, her voice was steady. They worked through the remaining terms with surprising efficiency, both sides making small concessions that added up to a framework everyone could accept. At 5:15, Tanaka stood. "Ms. Sterling, I believe we have the foundation for a strong partnership. My team will prepare the final contract language. If all proceeds as discussed, we can execute the signing next Friday." "Next Friday," Vanessa repeated. "Here?" "Tokyo, actually. I'd like you to meet our board of directors, see our facilities. 3 days, Wednesday through Friday. Can you manage that?" Ryan saw the calculation in Vanessa's eyes. A week from now, she'd be recovered enough to travel. "Barely." "I'll be there," she said. "Excellent." Tanaka turned to Ryan. "Mr. Cole, it's been enlightening to see you again. Your presence today was unexpected but valuable." "Just here to support Vanessa." "That much is clear." Tanaka gathered his documents. "Ms. Sterling, I look forward to next week." They shook hands. Tanaka and his team filed out, leaving just Vanessa, Ryan, Mitchell, and the legal team. Marcus had already disappeared, probably to report back to his bosses that the deal was proceeding despite his best efforts to kill it. The moment the door closed, Vanessa sat down heavily. The professional mask cracked, and Ryan could see the exhaustion underneath. "We did it," Mitchell said, something like disbelief in his voice. "We actually did it." "Don't celebrate yet," Vanessa's voice was tight. "We still have to get through next week, Tokyo, the board, the actual signing. But we're close, closer than we've been." Mitchell looked at Ryan. "Thanks for being here, for calling out Marcus, for everything. Just doing what Vanessa asked." "Still, it mattered." Mitchell checked his phone. "I need to call the legal team in Tokyo, start coordinating logistics. Sandra, David, Rachel, let's debrief in my office in 20 minutes. The legal team filed out. Mitchell followed, leaving Ryan and Vanessa alone in the conference room with its view of Chicago turning golden in the late afternoon sun. "You okay?" Ryan asked. "Ask me in an hour." Vanessa stood up carefully. "I need to get back to my apartment before I collapse." "James is driving you?" "Unless you're offering." "My truck smells like motor oil and the passenger door sticks." "Sounds perfect." She smiled. "I'm kidding. James is downstairs, but Ryan, thank you for today. For calling Marcus an asshole when I couldn't. For making me take a break when I was too stubborn to ask for one. You would have managed without me. Maybe, but it would have been harder." Vanessa grabbed her briefcase, winced. "The doctors said recovery takes 6 weeks. I'm giving myself one. Think I'll make it?" "You made it through today." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I've got." They walked to the elevator together. James was waiting in the lobby, professional concern on his face when he saw how carefully Vanessa was moving. "Ms. Sterling, perhaps we should—" "I'm fine, James. Just tired." She turned to Ryan. "Can I drop you somewhere?" "My truck's at the garage." "Then we'll take you to the garage." The drive back took 30 minutes. Ryan sat in the back of the town car, watching Chicago roll by while Vanessa made phone calls, coordinating flights to Tokyo, briefing someone on the legal team, checking in on projects he didn't understand. Even exhausted and recovering from surgery, she couldn't stop working. They pulled up outside Cole & Son's auto repair as the sun was setting. The garage looked exactly like it always did, worn down, holding on by habit and stubbornness. "This is it?" Vanessa was looking out the window at the building. "This is it. Third-generation family business slowly going bankrupt." "How long do you have?" "Before what?" "Before you can't make rent. Before you have to close." Ryan thought about the bills in his desk drawer, about the landlord's casual mention of raising rates. 3 months, maybe 4 if I'm lucky. Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Then, what if you had investment capital? What if someone wanted to invest in expanding the business? I'd ask why they were wasting their money. I'm serious. So am I. This neighborhood's changing. People who can afford luxury car service don't come to places like this. But what if the place wasn't like this? What if it was better? Updated equipment, professional marketing, a real business plan. Ryan stared at her. "You're talking about charity." "I'm talking about investment. There's a difference." "Not from where I'm sitting." "Ryan, you saved my life. You saved my company. Let me—" "No." He opened the car door. "I didn't save your life so you'd feel obligated to save mine. That's not how this works." He climbed out before she could argue, walked to his truck without looking back. Behind him he heard the town car pull away, taking Vanessa Sterling back to her world while Ryan returned to his own. Mrs. Chen had fed Mia dinner and helped her with homework. Ryan picked up his daughter and walked her the 30 feet back to their apartment, listening to her talk about school and friends and the science project due next month. "The rich lady called," Mia said as Ryan tucked her into bed. "What?" "Mrs. Chen's phone. The rich lady called looking for you. She said to tell you she's sorry if she offended you." Ryan closed his eyes. Of course Vanessa had tracked down Mrs. Chen's number. Of course she'd called. "What did you tell her?" "That you were coming home soon and you don't like charity." Mia yawned. "Did I say the right thing?" "You said the perfect thing, sweetheart." "Good." Her eyes were already closing. "Love you, Daddy. Love you more." Ryan turned off the light and headed to the office, planning to tackle the paperwork he'd been avoiding. Instead, he found himself staring at the stack of bills, at the numbers that didn't add up, at the future that looked increasingly impossible. His phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "You're right. It would have been charity. I'm sorry." Ryan stared at the message for a long time before responding. "You don't owe me anything, I know. But what if I want to help anyway?" "Why?" "Because you helped me. Because your daughter wants to be an astronaut, and you're working yourself to death trying to give her that chance. Because someone should." The last 3 words hit harder than they should have. His own words from the hospital, thrown back at him. "I can't accept charity." "Then don't. Accept a business partnership. I provide capital. You provide expertise. We turn Cole and Sons into the kind of place that can compete in this neighborhood. Equal partners. That's still charity. It's business. I've been looking for investment opportunities outside tech. Diversification. This fits. Ryan wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe that someone like Vanessa Sterling would see value in a failing garage in a changing neighborhood. But he'd spent too many years watching promises fall apart to trust easy solutions. I need to think about it. Take your time. I'm in Tokyo next week anyway. We can talk when I get back. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck and then ran a marathon. But alive. Thanks to you. Get some rest. You too. And Ryan, thank you for today. For all of it. Ryan set down the phone and looked around the office. At his father's old desk, at the photos on the wall showing 3 generations of Coles, at the business that had been his family's legacy and was becoming his failure. Maybe Vanessa was right. Maybe accepting help wasn't the same as accepting charity. Maybe partnership was different than pity. Or maybe he was just desperate enough to believe anything that looked like hope. The week Vanessa spent in Tokyo felt longer than it should have. Ryan kept the garage running, fixed a transmission on a 2008 Honda that should have been scrapped years ago, and tried not to think about business partnerships or billionaires who texted him updates from halfway around the world. Tuesday night, 11 p.m., Chicago time. Board meeting went well. Tanaka's impressed with the production timeline. Wednesday afternoon, toured their facilities. Their quality control makes ours look amateur. Taking notes. Thursday morning, signing ceremony is tomorrow. Wish me luck. Ryan responded to each message with variations of good and glad it's going well. Because what else was there to say? He was a mechanic watching a corporate drama unfold from 5,000 miles away, connected to it only by accident and proximity. Friday morning, he woke up to a photo. Vanessa in a conference room surrounded by Japanese executives, everyone holding champagne glasses, her smile looking genuine for the first time since he'd met her. The caption read, "Deal signed, $1.3 billion partnership official. Thank you for making this possible." Ryan showed the photo to Mia over breakfast. "She looks happy," Mia said, studying it carefully. "Is she still sick?" "Recovering. She's tougher than she looks." "Are you going to let her help with the garage?" Ryan looked at his daughter, surprised. "How did you know about that?" "I heard you on the phone. You talk loud when you think I'm asleep." Mia took another bite of cereal. "Mrs. Chen says accepting help doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart." "Mrs. Chen talks too much. She says you're too stubborn for your own good." "She's definitely talking too much." Mia grinned. "So are you? Gonna let her help?" "I don't know yet, sweetheart. It's complicated." "Grown-up complicated or actually complicated?" "Both." Vanessa returned to Chicago on Saturday. Ryan knew because she texted him from the airport. Back home. Exhausted but alive. "Can we talk this week about the partnership?" Ryan stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. "Tuesday work? Garage closes at 6. I'll be there at 6. Tuesday arrived with the kind of cold that meant winter was coming, whether Chicago was ready or not. Ryan spent the day doing an oil change, replacing brake pads on a Subaru, and trying to figure out what he'd say to Vanessa when she showed up. The truth was, he needed help. The garage was hemorrhaging money. Mrs. Patterson's check had bounced last week. The heating system was making noises that promised an expensive repair right before temperatures dropped for real. Ryan had maybe 2 months left before he'd have to close, sell the property to whatever developer wanted to turn it into condos, and find a job working for someone else. The idea of that, of giving up 3 generations of family legacy, made his chest tight. But the idea of accepting money from someone he barely knew, someone who lived in a completely different world, felt like admitting defeat in a different way. At 5:45 p.m., Ryan locked the garage bay and headed to the office to wait. The space looked worse in the fading daylight, water stains on the ceiling, paint peeling in the corners, furniture that belonged in a landfill. This was what he'd be asking Vanessa to invest in. This disaster. At exactly 6 o'clock, the black town car pulled up outside. Vanessa climbed out wearing jeans and a sweater, looking more human than corporate, though the jeans probably cost more than Ryan's monthly grocery budget. James stayed with the car. Vanessa walked in alone, glanced around the garage with the kind of attention people reserved for things they were actually interested in. You weren't exaggerating, she said. This place really is falling apart. Thanks for the honesty. You want honesty, or you want me to lie and say it's charming? Honesty. Always. Vanessa walked to the garage bay, ran her hand along the broken lift. This one operational? No, hasn't been since March. Replacement costs about 12 grand installed. And the other one? Works, barely, needs maintenance I can't afford. She moved through the space like an auditor, noting everything. The ancient air compressor, the diagnostic equipment from the early 2000s, the tool chest that had been his grandfather's. Ryan followed, watching her calculate value in a place he'd only ever measured in memory. Your father ran this place how long? She asked. 42 years. Took over from my grandfather in 73. And you took over when? 5 years ago, right after he died. I was working as a mechanic in Naperville, making decent money, but someone had to keep this place running. Ryan leaned against the workbench. Turns out wanting to keep something alive and knowing how to keep something alive are different skills. You're not a bad businessman, Ryan. You're just undercapitalized in a changing market. That a nice way of saying I'm broke? That's a realistic assessment of your situation. Vanessa turned to face him. Here's what I see. Prime real estate in a gentrifying neighborhood. Established business with 3 generations of reputation. Owner with actual mechanical expertise. That's a solid foundation. Foundation for what? For something better than this. She gestured around. You're competing with chain shops and quick lube places on price, which is a losing game. But if you repositioned, if you became the premium option for the new demographic moving in, you could charge more, offer more, actually make money. The new demographic takes their BMWs to the dealership. Some do, but plenty of them want independent shops. They just want those shops to look professional. Updated equipment, clean waiting area, online booking, actual marketing, convenience and quality. Ryan thought about that. About the coffee shop 3 blocks down charging $8 for lattes because they'd built an atmosphere people wanted to pay for. About the boutique selling $70 candles. How much would all that cost, he asked. Complete renovation, new equipment, updated systems, marketing budget? Vanessa pulled out her phone, opened a notes app. Conservatively, $500,000. That gets you competitive equipment, professional design, operating capital for 6 months while you build the client base. $500,000. Give or take. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. And you want to invest that in a garage that currently can't afford to fix its own lift. I want to invest in you. The garage is just the vehicle. Vanessa sat down in one of the ancient waiting room chairs. I spent the last week in Tokyo watching Tanaka and his team operate. You know what impressed me most? They invest in people, not just businesses. They found engineers they believed in and built entire divisions around them. That's how they grew. I'm not an engineer. I'm a mechanic. You're someone who spent 5 years trying to save a family legacy while raising a daughter alone. That's the kind of determination I invest in. It's still charity, Vanessa. It's not. Her voice was firm. Here's the deal. I provide $500,000 in capital. You provide expertise and labor. We form an LLC, Cole Performance Auto. You own 51%, I own 49%. You maintain operational control. I'm a silent partner who gets financial reports and has input on major decisions. Profit split according to ownership percentage. Ryan stared at her. You're offering me majority ownership. You're the one who knows how to run a garage. I know how to structure investments. This is your business, Ryan. I'm just providing the capital to make it viable. Why would you give up control? Because I learned something last week. Vanessa looked out the garage window at the street beyond. I've spent 10 years building sterling dynamics by keeping absolute control over everything. Every decision, every hire, every partnership. It nearly killed me. Literally. And you know what I realized in that hospital bed? The best partnerships aren't about control. They're about trust. You barely know me. I know you called 911 when I begged you not to. I know you went to a meeting you had no business attending to save a deal for people you'd never met. I know you told off Marcus Reeves in a boardroom full of investors because he was being an asshole. She smiled. That's enough to know I trust your judgment more than most people I've worked with for years. Ryan walked to the office window, looked out at the street where his grandfather had built something from nothing, where his father had maintained it for decades, where Ryan had been watching it die. What happens if it fails, he asked. If we renovate and market and do everything right and it still doesn't work? Then we write it off and you still own a business with updated equipment in a valuable location. Worst case, you sell the property for more than it's worth now and start over somewhere else. And you lose $500,000. I made $1.3 billion last week. I can afford the risk. Ryan turned to face her. This feels too good to be true. There has to be a catch. The catch is you have to actually run the business. Show up every day. Make it work. Build a client base. I'm investing in the potential, but you have to deliver the reality. And if I can't, then I misjudged you. But I don't think I did. The office was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator in the corner and the distant sound of traffic. Ryan thought about Mia, about astronaut dreams and college funds, and the life he wanted to give her. About 3 generations of Coles who'd believed that hard work and honest service meant something. 51, 49, he said finally. I maintain operational control. You're a silent partner. That's the offer. And we put it all in writing, legal contracts, everything official. Absolutely. When would we start? Vanessa stood up. I'll have my lawyers draft the partnership agreement this week. We can sign next Tuesday. Then we start planning the renovation. You tell me what equipment you need, we hire a designer for the space, develop a marketing strategy. Figure 3 months for construction, another month for soft opening, then full launch in March. March! Ryan thought about his landlord's threat to raise rent, about the bills in his desk drawer. I'm not sure I can hold on until March. You won't have to. The partnership agreement includes immediate operating capital, enough to cover your current expenses while we plan the renovation. Consider it an advance against future profits. Ryan stopped. Why are you doing this? I told you. Because someone should. No, really. Why? Vanessa was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than Ryan had heard it. Because 10 days ago, I was willing to die rather than fail. And you stopped me. Not just from dying, you stopped me from believing that success meant sacrificing everything else. You went to that meeting in coveralls and told investors the truth and reminded me that maybe there's another way to do this, a way that doesn't require destroying yourself. I didn't do anything special. You did something I'd forgotten how to do. You helped someone without calculating the return on investment. She held out her hand. So now I'm helping you, not as payback, not as charity, as partnership. Deal? Ryan looked at her hand, at the woman who'd crashed into his life bleeding and desperate and somehow become, what? A friend? A business partner? Something he didn't have words for yet. He shook her hand. Deal. The lawyers moved faster than Ryan expected. By Thursday, he was sitting in a conference room at Sterling Dynamics, reading through 40 pages of legal language that basically said what Vanessa had promised. 51, 49, operational control, profit sharing, everything official and binding. Sandra Yang, the corporate attorney who'd been at the Tanaka meeting, walked him through every clause. This is a generous agreement, Mr. Cole. Very favorable terms for you. Vanessa said she wanted a partnership, not a takeover. Still, most investors would demand majority control, especially given the capital difference. Sandra turned a page. The immediate operating capital clause here, that's $50,000 available as soon as you sign, meant to cover your current expenses and initial planning costs. $50,000. More money than Ryan had seen in one place in his entire life. And the renovation budget? $500,000 as discussed, dispersed in stages as work is completed. You'll need to get bids from contractors, submit them for approval, then funds are released directly to vendors. What if we go over budget? There's a 10% overage allowance built in. Beyond that, you and Ms. Sterling would need to renegotiate terms. Sandra looked up from the contract. Mr. Cole, I've worked with Vanessa for 3 years. I've never seen her offer anyone terms this favorable. Whatever you did to earn her trust, it was significant. I called 911. You did more than that. Sandra slid a pen across the table. Read the whole thing. Ask questions. Don't sign anything until you're completely comfortable. Ryan spent 2 hours reading every word, asking Sandra to explain anything he didn't understand, making sure there were no hidden clauses or surprises. The whole time he kept waiting for the catch to reveal itself. It never did. On Tuesday, Ryan and Vanessa signed the partnership agreement in front of Sandra and a notary. Cole Performance Auto, LLC, became official. Ryan owned 51% of something that didn't exist yet, but might become everything. First step, Vanessa said after the notary left, is figuring out what you actually need. Equipment, tools, systems. Make a list of everything required to run a premium auto shop. I can do that. Second step is design. I'm hiring a firm that specializes in commercial renovation. They'll meet with you, develop plans, handle the construction management. How much input do I get? It's your shop. You get all the input. They work for you. I've never managed a construction project. Then you'll learn. Part of being a business owner. Vanessa pulled out her phone. I'm setting up a meeting for Thursday with the design firm. Can you make it? Yeah, where? Here. Sterling Tower, 10th floor, conference room B, 2 p.m. Ryan thought about walking back into that building, about conference rooms and professional meetings in a world he still didn't quite belong to. I'll be there, he said. Thursday afternoon found Ryan back at Sterling Tower feeling only slightly less out of place than his first visit. The design firm turned out to be 3 people in their 30s who treated the garage project like it was the most interesting thing they'd worked on in months. Elena, the lead designer, spread blueprints across the conference table. Okay, Ryan, can I call you Ryan? Tell me about your vision. What does the ideal version of this garage look like? Honestly, I have no idea. I just know it can't look like it does now. Fair enough. Let's start with function. What are your main services? General maintenance, diagnostics, repairs, everything from oil changes to engine rebuilds. Specialty in anything? European cars. My dad did a lot of BMW and Mercedes work, built a reputation for it. Elena made notes. So we lean into that. European specialist, premium service. What about capacity? How many vehicles can you realistically service per day? Ryan thought about it. With proper equipment, maybe 6 to 8. 2 bays for quick service, 2 for major repairs. 4 bays total. Good. Elena was sketching rapidly. Customer waiting area. How important is that? Right now, people usually drop off and leave. But if we're going premium, they'll want to wait, especially for quick service. Elena turned her sketch to show him. What if we create an actual comfortable waiting space? Not plastic chairs and old magazines. Real seating, Wi-Fi, coffee service, maybe a view of the work area through glass so they can watch their car being serviced. That sounds expensive. It is, but it positions you as premium. Marcus, one of Elena's partners, pulled up something on his tablet. Look at this. It's a shop in Los Angeles that repositioned exactly like we're discussing. Went from struggling independent garage to destination service center. Revenue tripled in 18 months. Ryan studied the photos. Clean lines, modern lighting, everything professional and inviting. Nothing like the garage he knew. Can we actually do this, he asked? Transform my place into something like that? The bones are good, Elena said. I visited the site yesterday. The building's solid, the location's excellent. We'd gut the interior, update all the systems, create separate zones for service and customer areas. 3 months construction time, maybe 4 if we hit complications. 4 months where I can't work. We can phase it, Marcus offered. Do the customer areas first while you keep 1 bay operational, then shut down completely for the final phase. Extends the timeline, but keeps you earning. Vanessa had been quiet through most of the meeting. Now she spoke up. Ryan, what do you think? Is this the direction you want to go? He looked at the sketches, the photos, the vision of something he'd never imagined his garage could become. Part of him wanted to say it was too much, too different, too far from what his father and grandfather had built. But another part, the part that was tired of watching things fall apart, thought maybe different was exactly what he needed. Let's do it, he said. The next 6 weeks were a blur of decisions Ryan had never expected to make. Choosing paint colors and flooring materials. Approving equipment purchases that cost more than his truck. Meeting with contractors who explained load-bearing walls and electrical capacity like Ryan was supposed to understand. Vanessa attended the first few meetings, then stepped back once she was confident Ryan had the hang of it. But she checked in constantly, texts asking about progress, calls to discuss budget questions, occasional visits to the site. The construction crew started work the second week of November. Ryan watched them gut his grandfather's waiting area with a mix of relief and grief. Every piece they tore out was a piece of history, but also a piece of failure. Mia loved the chaos. It's like that show, she said, watching workers demolish a wall. The one where they fix houses. Are we getting one of those islands in the kitchen? It's a garage, sweetheart, not a kitchen. Can we at least get a coffee machine? We're getting a whole coffee bar for the waiting area. Mia's eyes went wide. Really? Really, Elena says it's part of the premium service experience. This is so cool. Wait until Jenny sees it. Ryan smiled. At least someone in the family was completely comfortable with the changes. The week before Thanksgiving, Ryan got a call from a number he didn't recognize. Mr. Cole, this is Marcus Reeves. Ryan's stomach tightened. The asshole from the investor meeting. What do you want? Straight to the point. I appreciate that. Marcus's voice was smooth, practiced. I heard about your new business venture with Miss Sterling. Quite the generous partnership she's arranged. It's none of your business. Actually, it might be. See, I represent Consolidated Tech, and we've been looking at expansion opportunities in the Chicago area. Service sector acquisitions specifically. Your garage, once renovated, would be exactly the kind of asset we'd be interested in. We're not selling. Not yet. But business partnerships are complicated, Mr. Cole. Things don't always work out the way people plan. If you ever find yourself wanting to exit the arrangement with Ms. Sterling, we'd be very interested in discussing terms. Let me be clear, Ryan said slowly. I'm not interested. Not now, not later, not ever. Vanessa trusted me with this partnership, and I'm not going to screw her over because you're still bitter about losing that deal. I'm not bitter, I'm realistic. Sterling Dynamics is overextended. This partnership with Tanaka looks good on paper, but there are complications you're not aware of. When it falls apart, and it will, Ms. Sterling won't have the capital to maintain her investment in your little garage. That's when you'll want options. Thanks for the concern. We're done here. Ryan hung up, hands shaking with anger. He called Vanessa immediately. Marcus Reeves just called me. What? Vanessa's voice went sharp. About what? Trying to buy the garage. Said Sterling Dynamics is overextended and the partnership will fall apart. Vanessa swore quietly. He's fishing, trying to find leverage. Did he offer you anything specific? No, just said if I ever wanted to exit our partnership, he'd be interested in discussing terms. Ignore him. He's been trying to undermine us since the Tanaka deal closed. His bosses at Consolidated Tech are pissed they lost out, and Marcus is scrambling to deliver something that makes them feel better. Is it true, though? About Sterling Dynamics being overextended? Vanessa was quiet for a moment. We're ambitious. We're growing fast. That comes with risk. But we're nowhere near collapse, if that's what you're asking. And our partnership, the garage? That's separate from Sterling Dynamics. The LLC is its own entity, funded by my personal investment, not company money. Even if Sterling Dynamics had problems, which we don't, it wouldn't affect Cole Performance Auto. Ryan felt the tension ease slightly. Okay. Ryan, Marcus is going to keep trying. He'll call, he'll show up, he'll make offers. Just don't engage. Don't give him anything he can use. I won't. Good. How's the construction going? They talked for 20 minutes about tile choices and equipment delivery schedules. Normal business partner conversation that felt surreal, given that 2 months ago Ryan had been a stranger and Vanessa had been dying on his garage floor. Thanksgiving came and went. Ryan and Mia spent it at Mrs. Chen's apartment with half a dozen other neighborhood families, the kind of communal celebration that happened when nobody had enough money for the fancy version, but everyone had enough to share. Mia made a drawing of the new garage for her school assignment about gratitude. In her 7-year-old handwriting, she'd written, "I'm thankful my dad's garage is getting fixed and the rich lady who helps us." Ryan stuck it on the refrigerator and tried not to think about how much was riding on this working. By mid-December, the transformation was undeniable. The gutted space had become something clean and professional. New lighting made everything bright. The customer waiting area had actual comfortable seating, a coffee bar that would make the $8 latte place jealous, and floor-to-ceiling windows looking into the service bays. Elena walked Ryan through the completed sections with obvious pride. The equipment's being installed next week. Lifts, diagnostic systems, everything you specified. We're ahead of schedule, should be done by mid-January instead of February. That's good. The current bay is barely holding on. 1 more month, Elena showed him the rendering of the final product. This is what you're building, Ryan. This is Cole Performance Auto. Ryan studied the image. Professional, modern, premium. Everything his grandfather's garage hadn't been, but everything this neighborhood wanted. My dad wouldn't recognize it, he said quietly. Would he be proud? I don't know. He was traditional, believed in doing things the way they'd always been done. And you? I believe in survival. Ryan handed back the tablet. Whatever it takes to survive. The week before Christmas, Vanessa showed up at the construction site unannounced. She walked through the space slowly, taking in the changes, and when she turned to Ryan, her expression was complicated. This is really happening, she said. Yeah, thanks to you. Thanks to us. She touched one of the new lifts, ran her hand along the clean metal. I've been thinking about something, about why I wanted to do this. You said you trusted me. I do. But it's more than that. Vanessa turned to face him. When I collapsed outside your garage, I was running from the hospital because I thought my value was tied to that meeting, to the deal, to proving I could push through anything. And then you made me take a break during the Tanaka negotiation, and I realized I'd forgotten that value and worth aren't the same thing. I'm not following. The business world measures everything in value, profit margins, market share, quarterly returns. But worth, actual worth, that's different. It's what you're building here. It's raising your daughter alone and keeping a family legacy alive and helping a stranger who crashed into your life. Vanessa smiled. This partnership isn't charity, Ryan. It's me betting on worth instead of just value. And I think that's going to matter more than any deal I've ever signed. Ryan didn't know what to say to that. So he just nodded, and they stood together in the space that was becoming something new. Christmas Eve, Ryan closed the old bay for the last time. The lift had finally given up completely that afternoon, and rather than repair it, he decided to just shut down until the renovation was complete. He and Mia drove past the construction site on their way to the neighborhood church's free community dinner. The building was dark, wrapped in scaffolding and promise. Looks different, Mia said. Gonna look more different by March. Will it still be our garage? What do you mean? Will it still be ours, or will it be the rich ladies'? Ryan thought about that question, about ownership and partnership and what it meant to share something that had been solely his family's for 3 generations. It'll be ours, he said finally. Just a bigger ours than before. Mia seemed satisfied with that answer. The community dinner was crowded and loud and full of people Ryan had known for years. Mrs. Chen was there, and the family who ran the bodega 2 blocks down, and Mr. Peterson, who'd been bringing his car to Cole & Sons since Ryan's father was alive. Heard you're fixing up the garage, Mr. Peterson said over donated turkey and store-brand stuffing. Going fancy. Trying to stay competitive. Good. Neighborhood needs places like yours. Real places run by real people, not chains. He paused. You taking new customers when you reopen? Always. Why? Got a nephew moving to the area. Has a Porsche. Needs a shop he can trust. Send him my way. Will do. And Ryan? Your dad would be proud. He always said you had to adapt or die. Looks like you're adapting. Later that night, after Mia was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Ryan sat in the dark thinking about adaptation and survival and the fact that in 3 months he'd be opening a business that might succeed or might fail spectacularly. His phone buzzed. Vanessa. Merry Christmas, partner. Here's to new beginnings. Ryan looked out the window at the garage across the street, at the building wrapped in scaffolding and shadow, and typed back, Here's to not screwing this up. We won't. Trust me. And somehow, against all his instincts about trusting people who had more money than problems, Ryan did. January hit Chicago like a punishment, all ice and wind, and the kind of cold that made even short walks feel like expeditions. The construction crew worked through it, bundled in layers, turning the garage into something Ryan still couldn't quite believe was real. The equipment arrived in stages. First the lifts, 4-post precision models that cost more than Ryan had earned in his best year. Then the diagnostic computer system that could interface with any European car made in the last 2 decades. Air compressor, tire mounting machines, a full welding setup. Everything professional, everything new, everything foreign to the space his grandfather had built with used equipment and determination. Elena supervised the installation like a general directing troops. Ryan watched from the sidelines, feeling simultaneously grateful and useless. Stop hovering, Elena told him one afternoon when she caught him staring at the lift installation for the third time. They know what they're doing. It's my business. I should understand how everything works. You will, after they install it and you use it for 6 months. Right now, you're just in the way. Ryan retreated to the office, the only part of the building not being actively demolished, and tried to focus on the business plan Vanessa's marketing consultant had sent over. Target demographics, pricing strategies, customer acquisition costs, a whole language he was still learning to speak. His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Cole, this is Jennifer Torres from the Tribune. I'm doing a piece on small business revitalization in changing neighborhoods. I heard about your garage renovation and wondered if you'd be interested in being featured. Ryan's first instinct was to say no, but he remembered the marketing consultant's advice. Any press is good press, especially when you're launching. What kind of feature? Human interest angle. Third-generation family business adapting to new market realities. I'd interview you, take some photos of the renovation, maybe talk to some longtime customers. It'd run in the business section, probably mid-February. Can I think about it? Of course. I'll email you the details. Ryan hung up and immediately called Vanessa. The Tribune wants to do a feature on the garage. That's great. Free publicity right before launch. Or it's a chance for me to say something stupid and embarrass both of us. You won't say something stupid. Just be yourself. That's what I'm worried about. Vanessa laughed. Ryan, you convinced Japanese investors to reschedule a billion-dollar meeting. You can handle a newspaper interview. What's the reporter's name? Jennifer Torres. I'll have my PR person reach out, give you some media training. Basic stuff. How to stay on message, what to emphasize, what to avoid. You have a PR person? I have several. Welcome to running a business that matters to people who aren't you. The media training happened 2 days later in Vanessa's office at Sterling Tower. The PR person, a woman named Claire who looked about 25 but talked like she'd been doing this for decades, spent 3 hours teaching Ryan how to turn questions into talking points. When she asks why you're renovating, don't say, because the old place was falling apart. Say, we're evolving to meet our customers' changing needs while maintaining the family values that have defined us for 3 generations. That sounds fake. That sounds professional. There's a difference. Claire handed him a sheet of prepared responses. Practice these. Not memorize. You'll sound like a robot. Just internalize the key messages. Ryan practiced in his truck on the drive home, feeling ridiculous. But by the time he picked up Mia from school, he could almost make the corporate speak sound natural. You sound weird, Mia observed. I'm practicing for an interview. You sound like those people on TV selling stuff. That's not encouraging, sweetheart. The Tribune interview happened on a frigid Tuesday morning in mid-January. Jennifer Torres turned out to be a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a recorder that made Ryan immediately nervous. She walked through the construction site taking photos, asking questions about the renovation, the neighborhood, the family history. Ryan tried to remember Claire's coaching, tried to stay on message, tried not to say anything that would make Vanessa regret this partnership. So this is quite a transformation, Jennifer said, gesturing at the half-finished space. What inspired such a dramatic change? The neighborhood's evolving, and we needed to evolve with it. But the core mission, quality service, honest work, that stays the same. I heard you have a business partner now. Vanessa Sterling from Sterling Dynamics? Ryan's stomach tightened. Claire had warned him this might come up. Vanessa's a silent partner who provided investment capital. She believes in what we're building here. That's an interesting partnership. How did you two meet? Through a mutual connection. Not a lie, just vague enough to avoid the whole collapsed outside my garage story. And she invested, what, $500,000 in a neighborhood auto shop? That's unusual. She saw the potential, same potential I see. Jennifer made notes, her expression neutral. Some people might say gentrification is pushing out the small businesses that gave these neighborhoods character. Is Cole Performance Auto part of that problem or part of the solution? Claire hadn't prepared him for this question. Ryan thought about it, about Mrs. Chen and Mr. Peterson and the Bodega family, about the coffee shop charging $8 and the boutique with $70 candles. I think change is complicated, he said finally. Yeah, the neighborhood's different than when my grandfather built this place. Some of that's good, some isn't. But I'd rather adapt and stay than refuse to change and disappear. My dad used to say the neighborhood doesn't owe you business. You have to earn it every day. That's what we're trying to do. Jennifer smiled, the first genuine expression she'd shown. That's a good quote. Can I use it? Sure. They talked for another hour. About Mia, about losing Sarah, about the pressure of maintaining a family legacy while raising a kid alone. Ryan found himself being more honest than he'd intended, talking about fear and failure and the constant feeling of not being enough. You know what's interesting, Jennifer said as she packed up her recorder. I've interviewed a dozen business owners for this series. Most of them talk about success and growth and reaching their potential. You're the first one who's admitted being scared. Should I not have said that? No, it's good. It's real. People respond to real. She handed him a business card. The piece will run February 10th. I'll send you a preview copy before it goes to print. After she left, Ryan called Claire. I think I screwed up the interview. What did you say? The truth, that I'm scared and don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just trying not to fail. Claire was quiet for a moment. Actually, that's perfect. Authenticity sells. People are tired of corporate polish. Really? Really, you did good, Ryan. He wanted to believe her. The article ran on February 10th as promised. Jennifer had given Ryan the preview copy 3 days earlier, and he'd read it approximately 50 times looking for disasters. The headline, 3 generations later, one father's fight to save a family legacy. It wasn't what Ryan expected. Instead of focusing on the renovation or Vanessa's investment, Jennifer had written about family and change and what it meant to honor the past while building toward the future. She'd interviewed Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Chen and several other longtime customers. Even tracked down one of Ryan's father's old employees who talked about the garage's reputation for honest work. The photo that ran with the article showed Ryan in his coveralls standing in the half-finished garage, looking exactly like what he was, a guy trying to hold something together. You look sad in this picture, Mia said, studying it over breakfast. I was thinking about Grandpa. Do you think he'd like the new garage? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. His phone started ringing that afternoon and barely stopped. Mr. Peterson's nephew wanting to schedule service for his Porsche. 3 people who'd owned BMWs and been taking them to the dealership but wanted to try an independent shop. A woman who'd read the article and wanted to know if Ryan could work on her vintage Mercedes. By the end of the day, he had a waiting list before the garage had even opened. This is good, Vanessa said when he called her with the numbers. This is really good. We might need to hire help sooner than planned. I can handle it. Ryan, you've got 15 service appointments scheduled for the first week, plus walk-ins. You can't do that alone. I've been working alone for 5 years. Yeah, and running yourself into the ground doing it. Part of growing the business is growing the team. Ryan knew she was right, but the idea of hiring someone felt like admitting he wasn't enough. Like his grandfather and father had managed alone, but he couldn't. I'll think about it, he said. Think fast. We open in 3 weeks. The final push toward opening felt like controlled chaos. Elena's crew finished the construction on schedule, a minor miracle given Chicago winter. The business license came through. Insurance was finalized. Ryan spent a weekend installing tools and organizing the new equipment storage system. Mia helped, handing him wrenches and asking questions about every piece of equipment. What's this one do? That's the wheel balancer. Makes sure tires spin evenly. And this? Brake lathe resurfaces brake rotors. Do I have to be a mechanic when I grow up? Ryan looked at his daughter. You can be whatever you want, sweetheart. Astronaut, doctor, mechanic, anything. Can I be all 3? Probably not all at once, but yeah, you could do any of them. Mia went back to organizing socket sets by size, humming something from school. Ryan watched her work, thinking about the life he wanted to give her, about the business that might finally make that possible. The week before opening, Vanessa showed up with a surprise. I hired someone, she announced without preamble. You what? Hired a service manager. His name's David Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen, and he's got 15 years' experience running high-end auto shops. He'll handle scheduling, customer service, parts ordering, all the administrative work you hate. I didn't say I hate it. You didn't have to. I've watched you avoid paperwork for 2 months. Vanessa pulled out a tablet, showed him David's resume. He's good, he's professional, and he's looking for a long-term position. Interview him. If you don't like him, we'll find someone else. You can't just hire people without asking me. I'm not hiring him. I'm suggesting you interview him. There's a difference. Ryan wanted to be angry about the presumption, but the resume was impressive. Multiple shops, excellent references, actual management experience. When? Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Here or at Sterling Tower, your choice. Here. If he's going to work here, he should see the place. David Chen turned out to be a guy in his mid-40s with an easy smile and the kind of calm competence that suggested he'd handled every kind of automotive disaster. He walked through their garage asking smart questions, nodding approvingly at the equipment choices, and generally seeming like someone who knew what he was doing. Miss Sterling said you're launching in a week, David said. That's ambitious given the schedule you're looking at. Can it be done? With the right systems? Yeah. You need a solid booking platform, a customer management database, vendor relationships for parts supply. I can set all that up in 3 days if you give me access. What's your management style? Hands-on without micromanaging. I handle the business operations. You handle the technical work. We communicate daily, coordinate on scheduling, make sure customers get quality service without either of us burning out. Why do you want this job? You could manage for a dealership, make more money. David leaned against one of the new lifts. I'm tired of corporate bureaucracy. Tired of quarterly targets and customer satisfaction scores that don't actually measure satisfaction. I want to work somewhere that cares about quality more than volume. Ms. Sterling said you're that kind of owner. She said that? Direct quote. Ryan Cole would rather do 3 jobs right than 10 jobs fast. That true? Yeah. Then we'll get along fine. Ryan hired him on the spot. The next 3 days, David transformed the administrative chaos into something organized. He set up the booking system, established accounts with parts suppliers, created a pricing structure that actually made sense. Ryan watched him work with a mixture of gratitude and inadequacy. You make this look easy, Ryan said on the 3rd day. It is easy. This is the simple part. David looked up from his laptop. The hard part is maintaining standards when you're busy, not cutting corners when you're behind, staying consistent when the pressure's on. That's where most shops fail. Not from lack of skill, from lack of discipline. Think we can maintain it? With you doing the technical work and me handling operations? Yeah, we'll be fine. Opening day was March 1st, a Wednesday that arrived with unexpected sunshine and temperatures almost above freezing. Ryan got to the garage at 5 a.m., even though they didn't open until 8, unable to sleep, needing to see it one more time before customers arrived. The transformation still shocked him. Clean floors, modern lighting, professional signage. The waiting area looked like something from a magazine with its comfortable seating and coffee bar. 4 service bays with top-tier equipment. An office that didn't smell like old coffee and failure. This was Cole Performance Auto. This was what Vanessa's belief and his desperation had built. David arrived at 6:30 with coffee and bagels. Nervous? He asked. Terrified. Good. Means you care. David handed him a coffee. We've got 8 appointments scheduled, plus whatever walk-ins show up. You ready? No idea. Honest answer. I appreciate that. At 7:30, Vanessa showed up wearing jeans and a sweater that probably cost more than the coffee machine, but looked almost casual. You came, Ryan said. Wouldn't miss it. This is... She looked around the space at the transformation her money and his work had created. This is something. Yeah. Your dad would be proud. You didn't know my dad. I know you. That's enough. Mia arrived with Mrs. Chen at 7:45, dressed up like she was going somewhere important, which Ryan supposed she was. It's so pretty, Daddy. She ran through the waiting area, touching everything. Can I get coffee? You're 7. Hot chocolate? After the first customer. At precisely 8 a.m., Ryan unlocked the front door. Mr. Peterson's nephew was waiting outside with his Porsche Cayenne, looking nervous. You must be Ryan. Must be. You must be the Porsche. Guilty. Uncle Pete says you're the only guy in Chicago he'd trust with his car. That's a hell of a recommendation. Your uncle's a good man. Ryan gestured to the service bay. Let's take a look. The day blurred after that. The Porsche needed new brakes and a transmission fluid change. A BMW 5 Series came in for a check engine light. The woman with the vintage Mercedes showed up for the scheduled service, fell in love with the waiting area, and stayed to watch Ryan work through the glass partition. David handled the customer side with easy professionalism. Vanessa made coffee and chatted with people in the waiting area, somehow managing to seem completely at home despite being the only billionaire in the building. Mia did homework at the desk in the office and occasionally wandered out to inform customers about various space facts. "Did you know Jupiter is so big that all the other planets could fit inside it?" she told the Mercedes owner. "I did not know that." "It's true. We learned it in science. Also, there's a planet made of diamonds." "Your daughter's delightful," the woman told Ryan later. By 6 p.m., Ryan had serviced 7 cars, booked appointments for the next 2 weeks, and earned more in one day than he'd earned in most weeks at the old garage. After the last customer left, David pulled out a bottle of champagne he'd apparently been hiding. "To first days and new beginnings," he said, popping the cork. They toasted with paper cups because nobody had thought to bring real glasses. Mia got sparkling cider. Vanessa proposed a toast to partnership and trust and taking chances on people. Ryan looked around at the garage, at David already planning tomorrow's schedule, at Mia showing Vanessa her space facts homework, at the business they'd built from his desperation and Vanessa's generosity, and thought maybe this could actually work. The first month exceeded projections. Word spread fast about the new garage, helped by the Tribune article and Mr. Peterson apparently telling everyone he'd ever met. The appointment calendar filled up. Ryan hired a second mechanic, a young guy named Tommy who'd graduated from tech school and wanted to learn from someone who actually cared about quality. Vanessa stopped by once a week, always casual, always interested, never interfering but clearly invested in watching it succeed. "The numbers look good," she said one afternoon in late March, reviewing the monthly report David had prepared. "You're already profitable. That's unusual for a new business. We had advantages most new businesses don't have. Investment capital, professional marketing, equipment that actually works. You also have talent. Don't discount that." Ryan was under a BMW, replacing a water pump so he couldn't see her face. "This partnership thing, it's working out better than I expected." "You expected it to fail?" "I expected something to go wrong. Things usually do." "Optimist." "Realist." Vanessa laughed. "How's Mia doing?" "Good. She loves coming here after school, tells every customer about space. She's a good kid, smart. Too smart sometimes. Last week she asked why you don't have kids if you like them so much." "What'd you tell her?" "That some people build businesses instead of families." "That's depressing." "That's what Mia said. Then she asked if you were lonely." Vanessa was quiet for a moment. "What else did she say?" "That you should come to dinner sometime. Apparently you need to see how normal people live." "Did she actually say that?" "Paraphrasing, but yeah, that was the gist." "Is that an invitation?" Ryan slid out from under the BMW, grabbed a rag to wipe his hands. Vanessa was standing by the tool bench looking uncertain in a way he'd never seen her look in a boardroom. "It's Mia's invitation," he said. "But I'm not opposed. If you want to see how normal people live." "When?" "Friday, 6 o'clock. Fair warning, I'm a terrible cook and the apartment's small and you'll probably hate it." "I doubt that," Vanessa smiled. "Friday at 6. Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself. We're pretty informal." Friday arrived with the kind of spring weather that made Chicagoans forget winter had ever happened. Ryan left the garage at 5, picked up Mia from Mrs. Chen's, and spent 45 minutes cleaning an apartment that wouldn't get clean. "Why are you nervous?" Mia asked, watching him scrub the kitchen counter for the 3rd time. "I'm not nervous." "You're making that face you make when you're nervous." "What face?" "The one where your forehead gets all wrinkly." Ryan checked his reflection. His forehead did look wrinkly. "Vanessa's our business partner. I want the apartment to look nice." "It looks the same as always. She's not going to care if there's dishes in the sink." "There's not dishes in the sink, because you washed them 3 times." At 6 o'clock exactly, there was a knock. Ryan opened the door to find Vanessa standing there in jeans and a sweater, holding a bottle of wine that probably cost more than their dinner, but was thoughtful anyway. "Hi," she said. "Hi, come in." The apartment really was small. Living room, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, all of it totaling maybe 800 square feet. Furniture from thrift stores and family hand-me-downs. Mia's drawings on the refrigerator, photos of Sarah on the mantel that Ryan couldn't bring himself to put away. Vanessa looked around with genuine interest, not the polite scanning of someone slumming. "This is nice," she said. "Cozy. That's real estate speak for tiny. It's lived in. I like it." Mia appeared from her room carrying what looked like a poster board. "I made you something." She presented it proudly. A hand-drawn chart showing the solar system with planet names in careful 7-year-old writing. At the bottom, "For Vanessa. Thank you for helping my dad. From Mia." Vanessa's expression did something complicated. "Mia, I love this. Thank you. Do you want to know facts about each planet?" "Absolutely." Ryan escaped to the kitchen to finish dinner. Spaghetti, nothing fancy, the kind of meal he could make without disasters. While Mia explained to Vanessa that Neptune has winds that go 1,100 miles per hour, and Venus rotates backwards, and Saturn's rings are made of ice particles. They ate at the small table by the window, the three of them barely fitting, knees bumping when anyone moved. Vanessa asked Mia about school and space camp and her friends. Mia asked Vanessa about running a business and living in a big apartment and whether being a billionaire was fun. "It's complicated," Vanessa said. "Sometimes fun, sometimes stressful, sometimes lonely." "That's what Daddy said, that you might be lonely." Ryan started, but Vanessa cut him off. "Your dad's probably right. I spend a lot of time working and not a lot of time with people who aren't working." "You should come here more," Mia said simply. "We're not lonely when there's 3 people." After dinner, Mia showed Vanessa her room. NASA posters, books about space, a telescope Ryan had bought her last birthday, even though they couldn't really see stars in the city. Then Mia disappeared to work on homework, leaving Ryan and Vanessa in the living room with coffee and the wine she'd brought. "Your daughter's wonderful," Vanessa said. "She's the good part of my life, the part I didn't screw up." "You didn't screw up the garage either." "Not yet. Give it time." "Why do you do that? Assume failure before it happens?" Ryan thought about that. Because hoping for things to work out and having them fall apart anyway, that's worse than expecting failure. At least when you expect it, you're prepared. That's a terrible way to live. That's how I've survived. Vanessa set down her wine glass. "Can I tell you something about why I really invested in the garage?" "I thought you invested because you trusted me." "I do trust you, but that's not the whole reason." She looked at the photos on the mantel, at Sarah's face smiling from another life. "When I was lying in that hospital bed, I kept thinking about what you'd said, that you'd spent years watching your life fall apart and wanted to stop just one thing from failing. And I realized that's all any of us are doing, trying to stop things from falling apart, trying to build something that lasts. And you think the garage is that? I think you are. I think the way you showed up to a meeting you had no business being at, the way you've built this life for Mia, the way you keep going even when everything's hard, that's something worth investing in." Ryan didn't know what to say to that. So he just sat there while outside the window Chicago did its thing, and inside the apartment Mia hummed while doing math homework, and Vanessa looked at him like he was someone who mattered. "I'm glad you came to dinner," he said finally. "Me too. Can I come back? Maybe make it a regular thing? Friday nights? If that works for you." "Yeah," Ryan said. "That works." Vanessa started coming to Friday dinners. Sometimes she brought takeout from places Ryan couldn't afford. Sometimes Ryan cooked. Sometimes they just ordered pizza and watched Mia do science projects at the kitchen table. It became routine in a way that felt both comfortable and strange. Ryan kept waiting for Vanessa to get bored with their small lives, but she kept showing up. "Don't you have better things to do?" he asked one night after Mia had gone to bed and they were cleaning up dishes. "Like what?" "I don't know. Billionaire things, charity galas, business dinners, whatever rich people do on Friday nights. I did those things for years. They're exhausting and fake, and I'm tired of them." Vanessa dried a plate, set it in the cabinet. "This is better. Real conversations, actual connection, people who don't want anything from me except company. We want your dishwashing skills. Fair trade." By May, Cole Performance Auto was thriving. The appointment calendar was booked 3 weeks out. They'd hired a third mechanic. David was already talking about expanding into a second bay for detailing services. The numbers Vanessa reviewed each month kept getting better. You're on track to double first-year projections, she said one afternoon at the garage, looking at the quarterly report. That's exceptional. David deserves the credit. He's the one managing operations. You're the one doing the work? The reputation you're building, people drive from across the city because they trust you. It's weird. What is? Having something work out. I keep waiting for the disaster. Maybe there won't be one. There's always one. Vanessa closed her laptop, looked at him seriously. Ryan, when are you going to let yourself believe you deserve this? The success, the partnership, all of it. When I've proven I can maintain it. You've been maintaining it for 4 months. That's not long enough. How long is? Ryan didn't have an answer. That night at dinner, it had become their Friday tradition without anyone officially declaring it. Mia made an announcement. I'm doing a project about successful people for school. Can I interview you both? Both? Ryan asked. You and Vanessa. You're both successful. Vanessa's successful. Ryan, Vanessa interrupted. Take the compliment. So they sat through Mia's interview, answering questions about what success meant and how they'd achieved it and what advice they'd give to kids who wanted to be successful someday. Success isn't about money, Vanessa said when Mia asked what the most important part was. It's about building something you're proud of with people you trust. Your dad and I, we built something together. That partnership, that trust, that's success. Later, after Mia had gone to bed, Vanessa and Ryan sat on the small balcony watching the city lights. She's going to present that project to the whole class, Ryan said. Tell everyone her dad's successful. You are successful. I'm surviving. There's a difference. No, there's not. Not anymore. Vanessa turned to look at him. You've built a profitable business? You're raising an incredible kid? You've created something sustainable. That's success, Ryan, even if you won't admit it. Ryan wanted to argue, but looking at her face in the dim light, seeing the certainty there, he found he couldn't. Okay, he said quietly. Maybe you're right. I am right. Get used to it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the city, being present without needing to fill the space with words. And for the first time in longer than Ryan could remember, sitting there with Vanessa on his tiny balcony, overlooking a neighborhood that had changed and a life that had somehow gotten better, he let himself believe that maybe things didn't always have to fall apart. Maybe sometimes they actually held together. Summer arrived in Chicago with the kind of heat that made the city feel sluggish and alive at the same time. Cole Performance Auto's air conditioning worked perfectly, one of the many upgrades that still felt surreal to Ryan, and business kept rolling in despite the weather. 6 months since opening, 6 months of profitability, 6 months of Friday dinners with Vanessa that had become the part of the week Ryan looked forward to most, though he'd never admitted that out loud. It was a Thursday in late June when Marcus Reeves showed up unannounced. Ryan was under a Mercedes E-Class, replacing the fuel pump, when David appeared beside the lift looking uncomfortable. Ryan, there's someone here to see you, says it's urgent. Tell them to make an appointment. He says you know him. Marcus Reeves? Ryan slid out from under the Mercedes fast enough to bang his shoulder on the lift. Marcus was standing in the customer waiting area wearing a suit that cost more than the car Ryan was working on, looking around the space with the kind of assessment people reserved for things they wanted to acquire. Nice place, Marcus said when Ryan approached. Heard you've been doing well. What do you want? Straight to business. I appreciate that. Marcus gestured toward the office. Can we talk privately? Anything you have to say, you can say here. I'd rather not discuss business in front of your customers. Ryan glanced at the waiting area. 2 people sat there, both absorbed in their phones. Fine. 5 minutes. They went to the office. Marcus closed the door, settled into the chair across from Ryan's desk like he owned it. I'll be direct. Consolidated Tech wants to acquire Cole Performance Auto. We're prepared to offer you $2 million for full ownership of the business and property. Ryan stared at him. You're joking. I'm completely serious. $2 million, cash deal, you walk away clean. That's more money than you'll make in 10 years running this place. It's been 6 months. Exactly. You've proven the concept works. Now sell it to someone who can scale it properly. Marcus leaned forward. Think about what that money could do. College fund for your daughter, financial security, freedom from the daily grind. You could retire at 32. I don't want to retire. Everyone wants to retire. They just don't admit it. I'm not selling. Don't be stupid, Cole. This is a generous offer. More than generous given that half the business technically belongs to Sterling. 49% belongs to Vanessa. And I'm still not selling. Marcus's expression hardened. You should know that Sterling Dynamics is having cash flow problems. The Tanaka partnership isn't performing as projected. Word in the industry is they're looking at restructuring, possibly selling off assets. When that happens, Vanessa won't have the capital to maintain her investment here. She'll have to sell her share to someone. Might as well be us. You're full of shit. Am I? Ask her yourself. Ask about the quarterly numbers, about the Japanese production delays, about the board meeting last week where half her directors called for her resignation. Ryan's stomach went cold. Get out. 2 million, Cole. Think about it. You've got my number. After Marcus left, Ryan immediately called Vanessa. She answered on the third ring, sounding distracted. Hey, can I call you back? I'm in a meeting. Marcus Reeves just offered me $2 million to sell the garage. Silence. Then, I'll be there in 20 minutes. She made it in 15, walking into the garage looking stressed, in a way Ryan hadn't seen since the hospital. They went to the office, closed the door, and Vanessa sat down heavily in the chair Marcus had occupied. What exactly did he say? She asked. Ryan repeated the conversation. Vanessa's expression grew darker with each detail. The part about Sterling Dynamics having cash flow problems, is that true? We're having challenges, not problems. Vanessa. The Tanaka partnership is behind schedule on production rollout. It's costing us more than projected to meet their quality standards. We're burning through capital faster than anticipated. How much faster? Enough that the board's concerned. They called an emergency meeting last week. Some directors think we overextended, that we should slow growth and consolidate. And you think? I think they're panicking over short-term metrics instead of seeing the long-term picture. Yes, we're spending money now, but once production stabilizes, the revenue will follow. We just need time. Ryan looked at her carefully. Are you in trouble? No, maybe. I don't know. Vanessa ran a hand through her hair. The board wants me to cut costs. That might mean selling off some investments to free up capital. Investments like your share of this garage. I'm not selling my share of the garage, Ryan. Even if your board demands it, they can't demand it. It's my personal investment, not company money. But if you need cash, I'll find it somewhere else. Vanessa met his eyes. This partnership isn't about money for me. It never was. Then what's it about? It's about building something that matters. It's about trust. It's about... She stopped, seemed to reconsider. It's about having one part of my life that isn't falling apart. The vulnerability in her voice hit harder than Ryan expected. Your life isn't falling apart, he said. Feels like it some days. The board questioning my decisions, production delays, competitors circling, Marcus Reeves making acquisition offers because he knows we're vulnerable. She laughed without humor. And here I thought successfully closing the Tanaka deal would solve everything. Success doesn't solve everything. It just creates different problems. When did you get wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't paying attention. That got a real smile. Small, but real. What are you going to do? Ryan asked. About the board? About Sterling Dynamics? Fight. What else can I do? I built that company from nothing. I'm not giving it up because some board members got nervous about quarterly metrics. And us? The garage. Nothing changes here. This partnership stands regardless of what happens with Sterling Dynamics. I promise you that. Ryan wanted to believe her, but he'd learned that promises made in crisis often fell apart when reality arrived. The next few weeks were tense. Vanessa still came to Friday dinners, but she was distracted, constantly checking her phone, taking calls in the other room. Mia noticed. Is Vanessa okay? She asked one night after Vanessa had excused herself for the third time to handle a work emergency. She's dealing with some business stuff. Is it bad? Complicated. That's what adults say when it's bad, but they don't want to admit it. Ryan looked at his daughter, once again impressed by her ability to cut through nonsense. Yeah, it's probably bad. But Vanessa's tough. She'll figure it out. We should help her. I don't think there's anything we can do, sweetheart. We could make her feel better. That's something. When Vanessa came back from her call looking exhausted, Mia immediately presented her with a drawing she'd been working on, a rocket ship with Vanessa's name on the side. Because you're like an astronaut, Mia explained, doing hard things even when they're scary. Vanessa's expression did something complicated. She pulled Mia into a hug and Ryan saw tears she was fighting to hold back. "Thank you," Vanessa whispered. "I needed that." Later, after Mia had gone to bed, Ryan and Vanessa sat on the balcony like they always did. The city spread out below them, all lights and motion and the constant hum of other people's lives. "The board voted today," Vanessa said quietly. "They want me to step down as CEO, transition to an advisory role while they bring in professional management. Can they do that? If they get enough votes, yeah. I built the company, but I don't have majority control anymore. Too many funding rounds, too many investors. I diluted my ownership to fuel growth. What are you going to do?" I told them to go to hell, offered to buy out any board member who wants to leave, called their bluff. And? 2 of them took the offer. The others backed down. For now. "So you won." "I bought time. That's not the same as winning." Vanessa looked at him. "Marcus was right about one thing. I'm cash poor right now. I've got assets worth billions, but actual liquid capital is tight. If I have to buy out more board members, if production delays continue, if anything else goes wrong, I might actually have to sell assets, including the garage. I won't sell the garage. Even if you have to, Ryan, I made you a promise. I keep my promises. Sometimes circumstances don't let you keep promises. I get that." "I keep my promises," she repeated, steel in her voice. "You trusted me when you had no reason to. I'm not betraying that trust." Ryan thought about trust, about the way it was built slowly through small actions and destroyed instantly through failure, about the fact that he'd let Vanessa into his life, into Mia's life, and now they both depended on her in ways that went beyond business. "If you need to sell your share, I understand," he said. "I can probably get a loan, buy you out, find another investor." "You do that? It's my business. I should have been able to fund it myself from the start. That's not how partnerships work. I'm learning that." Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" "Sure. When I collapsed outside your garage when I was lying there bleeding and you were calling 911 despite my protests, I was furious with you. Furious that you wouldn't listen, that you wouldn't let me control the situation, that you were ruining everything I'd worked for. I remember. You were pretty clear about that. But lying in that hospital bed after surgery, realizing you'd saved my life, I understood something. I'd spent 10 years building a company by maintaining absolute control over everything, and it almost killed me, literally, because I couldn't admit weakness, couldn't ask for help, couldn't trust anyone else to handle things. Where are you going with this? I'm going with the fact that you taught me something that day, that sometimes letting go of control is the only way to survive. That trust is stronger than control." Vanessa turned to face him. "So no, I'm not selling my share of the garage. Not because I can't, but because this partnership, what we've built here, that's the one thing in my life I got right, and I'm not giving that up." Ryan didn't know what to say, so he just reached over and took her hand, held it while the city hummed below them and the night air carried the smell of summer and possibility. They sat like that for a while, not talking, just being present with each other in a way that felt more significant than any business partnership had a right to feel. July brought a heat wave and news that Sterling Dynamics had stabilized. Production delays had been resolved, new contracts were signed, and the board members who'd called for Vanessa's resignation had quietly retreated. The crisis had passed, at least for now. "They'll try again eventually," Vanessa said at Friday dinner, sounding tired but relieved. "That's how boards work, but I bought myself time to prove them wrong." "How'd you do it?" Ryan asked. "Resolved the production issues? Flew to Tokyo, spent 2 weeks on the factory floor, worked with Tanaka's team directly instead of coordinating through middle management. Turned out the delays were communication problems, not capability problems. Once we fixed the communication, everything else fell into place. So you solved it by actually doing the work instead of just managing from a distance. Basically." Vanessa smiled. "Kind of like what you do here. Get your hands dirty, Fix the actual problem. Don't just theorize about solutions. I'm a terrible influence. You're the best influence. Mia had been listening while pretending to focus on her dinner. Now she spoke up. Daddy, can Vanessa come to my birthday party? Ryan had forgotten about the birthday party. Mia was turning 8 in 2 weeks and had been planning it for months. A space-themed celebration at the apartment with her school friends. I'm sure Vanessa's busy, sweetheart. Actually, I'm not, Vanessa said. When is it? August 3rd, Saturday, 2 o'clock. I'll be there. Really? Mia's face lit up. Really? Wouldn't miss it. The birthday party turned out to be chaos in the best way. 15 8-year-olds running around the apartment and garage, all hopped up on cake and excitement. Ryan had decorated with planets and stars, turned the garage into a mission control center where kids could pretend to launch rockets. Vanessa showed up with a gift that made even Ryan's jaw drop, a professional-grade telescope, the kind serious amateur astronomers used. Vanessa, that's too much, Ryan said quietly while Mia was occupied with her friends. It's perfect. She wants to be an astronaut. She should have the tools to study space properly. That telescope cost more than my first car. Then you had a cheap first car. Later, after the party had wound down and most of the kids had been picked up, Mia insisted on setting up the telescope on the balcony. The city lights made serious stargazing impossible, but Ryan helped her point it at the moon while Vanessa watched. Look, Mia's voice was pure wonder. I can see craters. Ryan looked through the eyepiece, saw the moon's surface in detail he'd never imagined, and understood why his daughter loved space so much. It was about possibility, about worlds beyond this one, about the chance that something bigger and better existed. Your turn, Mia told Vanessa. Vanessa looked through the telescope, made appropriate impressed noises, and when she stepped back, her eyes were wet. Thank you for inviting me, she said to Mia. This is the best party I've been to in years. Really? Even better than billionaire parties? Especially better than billionaire parties. After Mia went to bed, Ryan and Vanessa did the traditional balcony sit, both exhausted from wrangling 8-year-olds, both content in the aftermath of successful celebration. She's growing up fast, Vanessa said. Too fast. Sometimes I look at her and see Sarah, same smile, same determination. You've done a good job with her. Raising her alone, that couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, still isn't, but she makes it worth it. Ryan paused. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why don't you have kids? You're good with Mia. You clearly like children. Vanessa was quiet for a long time. Honest answer? Always. I never made time for it. Spent my 20s building the company, my 30s proving it could scale. Kept telling myself I'd think about family later, and then later kept not arriving. She looked at him. You ever regret having Mia so young? Never. Not once. Even with everything you've sacrificed? I didn't sacrifice anything. I gained everything. Ryan thought about how to explain it. Before Mia, I was just going through motions, working, existing, not really living. She gave me purpose, gave me a reason to be better than I was. You're good at that, being better than you think you are. I'm just trying not to screw up. That's all any of us are doing. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city, being present with each other. And somewhere in that silence, Ryan realized he'd fallen in love with Vanessa Sterling. Not the billionaire CEO, but the woman who came to dinner every Friday and helped clean dishes and sat on his tiny balcony like it was the best place in the world. He didn't say anything. Wasn't sure how to say it, wasn't sure if she felt the same, wasn't sure it mattered. But he knew. And knowing changed something. August turned to September. The garage's first anniversary approached. David suggested they do something to market, a celebration, customer appreciation event, something. We've been profitable for 12 straight months, David said, showing Ryan the numbers. That's worth celebrating. It's worth continuing. Let's not jinx it. You're superstitious now? I'm cautious. There's a difference. But David was insistent, and eventually Ryan agreed to a small open house. Saturday, September 15th. Free coffee, shop tours, special pricing for anniversary appointments. Vanessa helped plan it despite Ryan's protests that she didn't need to. It's my business too, she pointed out. 49% means I get to help celebrate. The open house exceeded expectations. Customers came, brought friends, told stories about their cars and the service they'd received. Mr. Peterson showed up with his nephew and about 5 other relatives, all singing Ryan's praises to anyone who'd listen. The Tribune sent Jennifer Torres to cover it. She walked around interviewing customers, taking photos, and at one point pulled Ryan aside. "I'm doing a follow-up piece. 1 year later, how the garage is doing. You interested?" "Sure." "Good. I want to talk about the partnership, too. You and Vanessa Sterling, that's an interesting dynamic. Billionaire and mechanic building something together." Ryan glanced over at where Vanessa was chatting with customers, looking completely at home in coveralls she'd borrowed for the day. "It works because we trust each other," he said. "That simple?" "Nothing's simple, but trust makes complicated things possible." Jennifer made notes. "Good quote. Can I use it?" "Yeah." The follow-up article ran 2 weeks later with the headline, "From Crisis to Success, How Trust Built Coal Performance Auto." It was a good piece, honest about the struggles, clear about the partnership, respectful of both Ryan's journey and Vanessa's investment. The photo showed Ryan and Vanessa standing in front of the garage, both in coveralls, both smiling. Mia cut it out and put it on the refrigerator next to her drawing of the rocket ship. "You both look happy," she observed. "We are happy," Ryan said. "Are you going to marry Vanessa?" Ryan nearly dropped the coffee he was pouring. "What?" "She comes to dinner every week. She helped with my birthday. She's here all the time. That's what people do before they get married." "It's not. We're business partners, sweetheart." "Mom and Dad were business partners. In the marriage business. That's not how marriage works." "How does it work?" Ryan had no idea how to answer that question, especially since he'd been thinking about Vanessa in decidedly non-business partner ways for months now. "It's complicated," he said finally. "That's what adults say when they don't know the answer." "You're too smart for your own good." "I know. Are you going to ask her, or should I?" "You're not asking her anything." But Mia's question stuck with him. What was he doing? What were they doing? They weren't just business partners anymore. Hadn't been for months. The Friday dinners, the long conversations, the way Vanessa had become part of his and Mia's life, that was something more. He just didn't know what to do about it. October arrived with autumn colors and the kind of crisp air that made Chicago feel possible again. Business was steady. Life was stable. Everything Ryan had been afraid to hope for had somehow materialized. On a Friday night in mid-October, after dinner, and after Mia had gone to bed, Ryan and Vanessa sat on the balcony like always, but tonight felt different, heavier somehow, like something needed to be said. "Mia asked if we're getting married," Ryan said finally. Vanessa went very still. "What did you tell her?" "That we're business partners." "And that's all we are." "I don't know." "Is it?" Vanessa turned to face him. "What do you want it to be?" Ryan thought about the easy answer, the safe answer, the answer that wouldn't risk the partnership they'd built. Then he thought about trust, about taking chances, about the fact that playing it safe had never actually kept him safe. "I want it to be more," he said quietly. "I have for a while, but I didn't know if this was just—" Vanessa kissed him, just leaned over and kissed him right there on the balcony with the city lights as witness. When they finally broke apart, Ryan's heart was pounding. "So that's a yes?" he asked. "That's a very yes," Vanessa smiled. "I've been wanting to do that for months." "Why didn't you?" "Because I was scared. Of ruining the partnership, of complicating things, of wanting something I didn't think I deserved." She took his hand, "But then I realized, you taught me that trusting people is worth the risk. So I'm trusting this, trusting us." "I have no idea what I'm doing," Ryan admitted. "Haven't dated since Sarah died. Haven't let anyone close. Don't know how to—" "We'll figure it out, together. I come with a lot of baggage. A daughter, a struggling business that's your investment, an apartment the size of your closet. I come with board members who want me fired, competitors trying to destroy me, and enough emotional issues to fill a therapy practice. We're both disasters. Perfect match, then. Perfect match." They kissed again, longer this time, and Ryan felt something in his chest that he thought died with Sarah. Not the same love, Nothing would ever be exactly like that first love, but something real and present and possible. When they finally went inside, Mia's bedroom door cracked open slightly. "I knew it," she whispered loud enough for both of them to hear. "Go to sleep, sweetheart," Ryan called. "Can I be flower girl at the wedding?" "There's no wedding planned." "Yet," Vanessa added, smiling. "Yet," Ryan agreed. The next 6 months didn't solve every problem. Sterling Dynamics still had challenges. The garage still had rough weeks. Life still had complications. But Ryan and Vanessa figured it out together. They went on actual dates, dinner at restaurants Ryan couldn't afford, and Vanessa insisted on paying for, walks along the lakefront, movie nights with Mia, who served as enthusiastic chaperone. They told David about the relationship. He just laughed. "About time. I've been watching you two dance around this for months." "Were we that obvious?" "Painfully obvious." They told the board at Sterling Dynamics, which caused some concerned murmurs about conflicts of interest that Vanessa shut down with a reminder that her personal life was none of their business. They told Mrs. Chen, who immediately started planning a wedding despite neither Ryan nor Vanessa having proposed. "You'll need flowers," Mrs. Chen said, "and a cake, and—" "We're not engaged," Ryan protested. "Yet," Mrs. Chen said, sounding exactly like Vanessa. By spring, Cole Performance Auto was approaching 18 months of operation and consistent profitability. They'd hired 2 more mechanics, expanded into the detailing service David had proposed, and built a client base that stretched across Chicago. The Tribune did another follow-up piece. This time the headline read, "Love and Business, the Unlikely Partnership That Saved Cole and Sons." Jennifer Torres had figured out the relationship angle and written about it with surprising sensitivity, about 2 people from different worlds who'd found common ground, about trust and second chances, about building something together. The photo showed Ryan, Vanessa, and Mia in the garage. A family, though nobody had officially declared them as such yet. On a Saturday in late April, Ryan finally worked up the courage to ask the question that had been building for months. They were at the garage alone, doing inventory. Mia was at a friend's house. The city was quiet around them. "I've been thinking," Ryan said. "Dangerous," Vanessa replied without looking up from the parts catalog. "About us. About this." He gestured around. "About everything we've built. And I think we should make it official." Now Vanessa looked up. "Official how?" Ryan pulled a ring from his pocket. Nothing fancy, he couldn't afford fancy, but real gold, small diamond, the kind of ring that said, "I love you," without trying to impress. "Official like this," he said. Vanessa stared at the ring, then at him, and for a terrifying moment Ryan thought he'd miscalculated, moved too fast, assumed too much. Then she started crying. "Is that a yes?" he asked. "You're proposing in a garage. It's where we met. Seemed appropriate." "It's perfect." She wiped her eyes. "Yes, obviously yes." "Did you really think I'd say anything else?" Ryan slid the ring onto her finger. It fit. Of course it fit. They kissed there in the garage, surrounded by tools and equipment and the smell of motor oil and possibility. "Mia's going to lose her mind," Vanessa said when they finally broke apart. "She's been planning this wedding for months." "I know. Mrs. Chen showed me her notebook." "Should we be concerned that our 8-year-old has a wedding planning notebook?" "Probably, but I'm choosing to find it charming." They got married in October, almost exactly 2 years after Vanessa had collapsed outside the garage. Small ceremony, close friends, family that mattered. Mia was flower girl, exactly as she'd demanded. Mrs. Chen cried through the entire thing. Mr. Peterson gave a toast about how Ryan's father would be proud, about legacy and adaptation and the courage to build something new while honoring what came before. David gave a toast about partnership and trust and the fact that he'd seen this coming from day one. Mia gave a toast about how her dad and Vanessa were the best grown-ups ever, and now they were officially a family. Ryan gave a toast about second chances, about stumbling into love when he wasn't looking for it, about a woman who'd crashed into his life bleeding and desperate and somehow become his future. Vanessa gave a toast about a mechanic who'd saved her life in more ways than one, about learning that worth and value weren't the same thing, about building something real with someone real. The reception was in the garage, transformed for the night with lights and decorations, but still fundamentally the place that had brought them together. They danced on the floor where Vanessa had collapsed, where Ryan had called 911, where everything had started. "You know what's funny?" Vanessa said as they danced. "What? If my appendix hadn't ruptured that morning, if I'd made it to the meeting, if you hadn't called 911, none of this happens. We never meet. The garage fails. Sterling Dynamics continues exactly as before. Our whole lives would be different. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes." "You really believe that?" "I'm standing here married to you in a garage I thought I'd lose, raising a daughter who's thriving, running a business that actually works. Yeah, I believe it." Vanessa rested her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Ryan Cole." "I love you too, Vanessa Cole." "I'm keeping Sterling professionally. I know, but tonight you're Vanessa Cole." "Tonight I'm Vanessa Cole," she agreed. They danced until late, until Mia fell asleep on Mrs. Chen's shoulder, until the last guests had filtered out, and it was just the two of them in the empty garage. "What now?" Vanessa asked. "Now we live," Ryan said. "We work, we love, we raise Mia, we build the business, we handle whatever comes next. Together." "Together," Vanessa repeated. "I like the sound of that." 3 years later, Cole Performance Auto had expanded to 3 locations across Chicago. Ryan ran the original shop with a team of 8 mechanics. Vanessa remained a silent partner, though silent was generous given how involved she stayed. Sterling Dynamics had stabilized and grown, the Tanaka partnership generating exactly the revenue Vanessa had predicted. The board members who'd called for her resignation had either left or apologized. Marcus Reeves had moved to a different company after Consolidated Tech's acquisition attempt failed. Mia was 11, already talking about high school and engineering programs and NASA internships. The telescope Vanessa had given her for her 8th birthday was well used, supplemented now by advanced astronomy textbooks and a growing collection of space memorabilia. On a Friday night in late autumn, the 3 of them sat on the balcony of a new apartment, bigger than the old one, but not too big, still in the same neighborhood, still close to the garage. "Tell me again how you two met," Mia said. She'd heard the story dozens of times, but never tired of it. "Your stepmom crashed her fancy car outside the garage," Ryan said. "I didn't crash it. I parked urgently. You collapsed bleeding on the pavement." Details. "And Dad saved you," Mia continued, knowing the story by heart. "Called 911 even though you told him not to. Then went to your meeting and convinced the investors to wait. Then you invested in the garage and started coming to dinner, and eventually you fell in love." "That's the simple version," Vanessa said. "What's the complicated version?" "The complicated version is about 2 people who were both failing in different ways learning to trust each other. About taking chances on people when logic says not to. About building something together that neither of us could have built alone." "That sounds like a movie," Mia observed. "It kind of feels like a movie sometimes," Ryan admitted. They sat together watching the city, a family built from crisis and trust, and the willingness to believe that sometimes things actually worked out. The garage lights were visible from the balcony, the sign Ryan had commissioned reading Cole Performance Auto, established 1952, reimagined 2024. 3 generations of Coles had worked in that building. Now a 4th generation, Mia, if she chose, would have the option. But more than that, they'd built something sustainable, something that honored the past while embracing the future. "You know what I learned from all this?" Ryan said to Vanessa. "What?" "That the best things in life come from being willing to help someone, even when it doesn't make sense. I had no reason to care about your meeting, no reason to get involved, no reason to let you into my life. But I did, and it changed everything." "I learned that strength isn't about never needing help," Vanessa said. "It's about trusting people enough to let them help you. I spent 10 years building walls, and you showed me that sometimes walls just keep good things out." "What did I learn?" Mia asked. "That grown-ups are complicated and messy and don't have all the answers," Ryan said. "But if they're willing to trust each other, that's enough. Also, that space is cool, and you should always follow your dreams," Vanessa added. "I already knew those things," Mia said. They laughed, and the sound carried out over the city, over the neighborhood that had changed and stayed the same, over the garage that had almost died and been reborn, over all the small choices and big chances that had brought them to this moment. Below them, Chicago hummed with life. Above them, stars were barely visible through the city lights. But they were there, always there, whether you could see them or not. And in that moment, sitting with his daughter and his wife on a balcony overlooking a life he'd never imagined possible, Ryan Cole understood something fundamental. Success wasn't about money or status or proving anything to anyone. Success was about finding people worth trusting and building something together that mattered. Everything else was just details. The city lights flickered. Somewhere a car horn honked. Life continued its messy, complicated, beautiful march forward. And three people who'd found each other through crisis and built a family through trust sat together in the autumn air, grateful for second chances and the courage to take them.